Yo.
Hey. Hey, so there's a couple things.
Shoot.
Last time we didn't give our names. We should. That's definitely an oversight. My name's Chris.
And I'm Brian.
And this show is called Shooting the Ish, where we will be shooting the ish about all sorts of topics. How'd your 4th of July go?
All I remember is I just woke up from a hangover.
Oh.
And, it was a lot of drinking on my part. And the only good thing was that I didn't have to really go far. You know, it was because all the liquor was at the house. So.
Okay.
So I couldn't complain. How about yours?
It was pretty interesting.
Find interesting.
We went up to a party in the valley, over here in LA.
Uh-huh.
And, it was pretty chill party, and, it was in the back of someone's apartment building. So there was a couple neighbors that were all hanging out together, and a group of the neighbors was, Asian immigrants. 5 of them were from China, and 1 was from Japan. I guess they were coming to college out here.
Right.
And me and the buddy that I went with, he was a mutual friend of ours. We went to go play football in the parking lot of the apartment complex.
Oh, nice.
So the Asian students came and joined us. They had never played football ever, American football.
And you guys were you introduced a bunch of immigrants to football. That's awesome.
I taught the group how to throw, how to keep your arm, how to catch, how to throw different passes, how to throw pitches, how to throw I was even having them doing the option, from the college option.
Well, you saved me a question, so I was going to ask you.
What's that?
No, I was going to ask, did you teach them how to do option? No.
I taught them how to do the option. And catch this out. What's it?
What about play action? What about play action?
I tried a little bit of that with them. Yeah, we didn't get too far with that one. But, we're playing after about 20 minutes. Our mutual friend who I went to the party with completely goes back to the party. And everyone else who was playing football who was not me or the Asian immigrants goes back into the party.
Right.
So now it's me and 5 people who have never played American football, and I'm like the coach. But they're not stopping because they're like having such a ball.
Right.
And I'm not stopping because I'm like, fuck it, this is quite an experience.
Right.
I had to, and we played for like 2 hours, and they got good. Like, in front of my eyes, they got good.
Look at you, Mr. Vince Lombardi himself. And,
I felt like I was John Candy in Cool Runnings.
Really? That's the last analogy I can think of right now. But okay. Right, they want to be the first Asian NFL team. I know people would have been laughing their ass off. Now that has all the makings of a great Disney flick right there.
It was crazy. Like, one was the best passer, one was the best catcher, one was like an all-around smart learner, and then one was like just the best athlete. And in my mind, I was like, oh wow, I can make a little squad out of this.
I know.
But I had to just stop. Like 4 or 5 times, I just took a mental freeze frame.
Right.
And I was like, I'm never gonna forget this. This is fantastic. Like, I taught, and they were already in their 20s, so they say it's hard to teach people sports.
All dog new tricks.
Yeah, it was just awesome because they picked it up so quick, and we were at the point where we were just completely running around, throwing around, passing on the fly.
Right.
They were hitting me deep. I was going deep, and they were hitting me.
Oh,
now keep in mind, they had no clue how to spiral a football or throw a football.
Right, and you taught them in a day or less than a couple hours. That's crazy.
It was wild. It was so wild. It was such a good experience.
Now, did you get, any of their contact info? And the reason why I'm asking is because, suppose you want to, play, some scrimmage in the future. You could what you could do is, I'm sure, Craigslist has, something, or, some website has something where you could play, pickup games that people post online. And, you could say, hey, you can pretty much call up your Asian squad. I don't mean to sound racial, but, just call up your squad and say, hey, there's a pickup game, over here and all that kind of stuff. You guys want to go? And hopefully they don't have anything busy or not doing anything. They could pretty much, play that game. So.
Yeah, we could print up Asian invasion jerseys.
You will definitely go down in the history books just for that.
So you got drunk and I had a weird or strange experience.
Right. Well, right. I mean, the fact that, that's the last thing I would expect on the 4th of July, to be honest with you. Your story.
Yeah. Well, we went to see fireworks. They were nice. CBS Studios does like fireworks on 4th of July, and it's kind of like a big area, and the LA River is there, and the LA River is really nothing more than paved concrete. It's kind of funny looking to say like, oh, this is the LA River, but it's just like concrete. Well, you've seen it in like Terminator and those movies.
Right, and Grease and whatnot, and I think they used it recently in that Justin Timberlake film, In Time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they use that constantly. But it is laughable that they would call it the LA River, and there's no river running through it except maybe a little pond or something like that at the center. So.
Yeah, well, it used to be like a real river. They paved it over and killed all the wildlife off.
Oh, that was genius.
Yeah, and I think now it's LA, so I think now they have a plan to take off all the concrete that they had put on to like re-nature. I don't know what the word here would
basically reintroduce the wildlife into it, basically.
Yeah, because it's pretty like completely killed off. Like there's certain species that live there that don't exist anymore.
Right.
Well, LA is historic for doing like I guess there's like high money deals that are made on the in the government end. That are kind of questionable. Like LA used to have a good running train system, but the politicians were pushing for this like expensive bus system where a lot of people would basically be getting paid. So they shut down the rails and like paved over them to make a bus system. Now, I'm not a genius, but I know that a train does move faster than a bus. So now they're at the point where they're like, yeah, we fucked up.
Right. It's biting them in the ass.
But it's not even like in other cities, like these people who stand to make money, like scrape a little off the top. Like this is a big thing that affects a lot of people. Like you're forcing people who were happy taking a rail to now take a bus. Because of what reason?
Right. It's all like money reasons, fiscal reasons. Who knows?
Well, I guess that's what Roger Rabbit was about, right?
Well, that's like a heightened version of it. I think the more accurate, or well, in terms of the film that I'm going to suggest, it dealt with, the LA River in terms of like, the water supply being, scarce, is the film Chinatown. That one deals with it. Although it's funny you should mention Roger Rabbit. I think that's sort of like the heightened version of Chinatown to an extent. Well, to a great extent. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see any cartoons running around? I'm quite sure you do. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
a couple people have some mental instability out here.
Oh, okay. Right. I would imagine that.
I live in Venice, so if you put enough heroin in someone, they're bound to act like a cartoon.
Okay. Yeah, it's been like 3 years since I've been out there. I actually do kind of miss it. I'm not going to front.
Yeah, you should come out.
When I make another film, thank you.
Well, yeah, you got lucky. Well, you should come out for vacation. This way you don't have to work.
Yeah, that's true. But even when I was working, I had enough downtime to see you and our friends.
You're a hardworking man.
Well, at hardly working, yeah.
No, come on. You're like an indie version of The Rock.
Just less brolic. Last time I checked.
Did you see Fast and Furious 6?
No, but I heard good things about it.
It was entertaining.
It was entertaining? Oh.
Yeah. It was like I went with my dad though and a friend and everyone liked it but my dad because he goes to the movies so rarely that his whole thing was like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Right.
So he was kind of pissed actually because if he went to the movies only once a year and he saw this crap. But
you'd be pissed.
Since I go a lot, I was like, all right, this is kind of ridiculous. This is funny.
Right. But in his case, for every Fast 6, there was The Heat, so that kind of slightly redeemed his hope in films.
He actually went to see The Heat and loved it.
Right.
Speaking of, we have a ton of shit to talk about.
I imagine.
What did you see since the last time we spoke?
The last film I saw was a couple of days ago. Actually, it was this past Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw This Is the End, actually.
Okay, did you see anything else this week, or?
Surprisingly, no. I mean,
wow.
I did sneak into I did sneak in for a peek of Star Trek Into Darkness. And, I caught a glimpse of the new Khan, Nguyen Singh, this actor by the name of Benedict Cumberbatch.
Mm-hmm.
And, no, I mean, he has a great voice, and he has a wonderful presence,
mm-hmm.
and all that. But, I mean, I remember watching little clips of the original Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Khan is supposed to be like of an Indian descent, in the original Gene Roddenberry piece. And it looks like J.J. Abrams has taken great liberty with this, and I think it's a little bit ridiculous to have. I know no disrespect to the actor playing him, but I don't think, Khan is supposed to be, Caucasian,
Yeah, if you had seen The Wrath of Khan, for me, when I was watching, I was visually it was spectacular, and the way that they handled, crash. You remember in the old one when they did a crash, they just shook the camera and then they'd wobble around. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
This one was so ridiculous that they actually had the hallway spinning, and the actors had to run through the spinning hallway.
That's insane. Yeah, but I didn't watch that film all the way through. Like I said, I only caught a clip of Khan being sort of incarcerated and Spock, Kirk interrogating him. But to me, like I said, no disrespect to the actor playing him. I just thought that they should have gotten an Indian actor, or maybe just a darker looking actor who could be just as imposing and menacing, to play that part, because remember, in Roddenberry's vision, you're dealing with a multicultural melting pot, if you will, in the future.
Yeah, and
and and he in a way, I just think that J.J. Abrams is kind of deviating from that vision because he's trying to play it safe, and I understand you're trying to play it safe. Because due to, the time that we're living in, post 9/11, you don't want to offend anyone. I kind of get that, but still,
Well, also, in terms of just the lineage, this is supposed to be like a split timeline from Star Trek, but if Khan was frozen hundreds of years ago, it would have been the same Khan, right?
Correct.
So it should have been keeping in line with that. There are certain constraints that, I guess because of the fact that they don't care and a young audience doesn't know, they really don't care.
Right.
And that was kind of the thing. I was watching and I was like, had this, I was visually dazzled if I could use that.
But you and everyone else who's seen it. So.
But here's the thing. If you had seen Wrath of Khan or you had seen the previous stuff, I really felt halfway through like I was just watching Wrath of Khan, and I almost had the mentality I've seen this movie already. I'm a bit done with this.
Right.
If you saw Wrath of Khan already, you would have known the results, so what does it matter to even, there was a few twists and turns here, but you've seen the general movie already, and you felt like you saw it, but I guess if you hadn't seen that already, then you would be more into it.
Right, exactly. But, I did see, getting back to me now,
Come on.
This is shit. This is the end. I'm kidding.
What'd you think?
Well, I did get a little. I got tickled, and no homo, in the sense that seeing these celebrities getting dispatched one by one by the coming of the apocalypse. So I thought that was interesting. Certain big name celebrities whose names I won't give away just getting killed off. I thought that was kind of amusing, and the fact that they pretty much showcase what the apocalypse would look like through the eyes of these celebrities. I just thought was a interesting yet funny concept. You know. Did you get a chance to see it by any chance?
I did, but okay, I have a lot to say.
I'm all ears.
Okay, first of all, I have to put a footnote that says I didn't see that movie in the right frame of mind.
What were you under the influence or something? What happened?
Kind of. I went to the dentist and he had you know how they shave down your tooth to put a crown in?
Okay, and he gave you Novocaine in the process?
He gave me Novocaine the first time, but then the tooth cracked over the weekend, so now it was Monday. So I had an exposed nerve or exposed shaved down tooth for the whole weekend. And when I went in, I kind of went in the middle of his day, so he just quickly put the cap back on. But keep in mind, This time he didn't give me Novocaine, so I was in extreme amount of pain. He just basically glued a cap back on, a new cap, crudely. So I left, and I was in a ton of pain. But there's some times where I'll just be passing by a movie theater on my way home from work, because I'm working nights right now. And and there's some times where I'm like, I'll catch an early morning show. It's cheap, and if I see a good little film, whatever. So I'll kind of just hit it on the way home from work, So I did that, but I was in pain the whole movie. So much so that at the end of the movie, I called the tow truck company because I didn't know what was wrong with my car, and then I realized it was out of gas. I mean, I was in so much fucking pain. I was in so much pain I could not think straight.
Oh wow.
So in that regard, and the fact that it was a comedy where you should go see it with a buddy, and the fact that I just jumped in on it like it was a drama that I'd appreciate. So,
you're better off seeing it with a bunch of friends.
Yeah, it was mistakes made all around because I wasn't in the right frame of mind. So I didn't enjoy it as much as maybe I would have if I was in the right circumstance. With that being said, there was a couple. It was funny, Seth Rogen's a good writer. He's very creative.
With the help of Evan Goldberg.
Yeah, they're very creative, but sometimes that creativity can turn into gag or gimmick stuff. Every minute has a different gag or gimmick.
Yes.
Which is good because it's creative, and look, there's not a lot of creativity floating around sometimes. Some of these things are very formulaic, Mm-hmm. But in a lot of ways, that level of creativity kind of makes it a pop movie, which makes sense because obviously that's the condition the writers were under writing that material.
Possibly.
So, there's a 1 minute scene where for any random reason they just did ecstasy just for a minute,
Right.
There was things like that, which it makes sense. It's like a debutante, a lewd Hollywood behavior or something like this, but at the same time, it's just all these one after the other gimmicks. To me, took away from the total comedy value in a way, even though those individual scenes were funny.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Right. In the I guess in their flimsy defense, what the hell do you expect these celebrities to do in such a time of crisis? Where things. Their world is practically falling apart. So it's you either get laid, which that was not going to happen for any of them, or you're going to pretty much do as much drugs that is around at your disposal. When you can't do much of anything. So I kind of got that. It didn't bother me as much.
Yeah, I really liked Michael Cera's character.
Yeah, for a hot minute, yeah, he actually did crack me up in the beginning.
He was completely, for anyone who's listening, and hasn't seen it yet, he was completely lewd. Every time they cut to him, he was doing something sexually inappropriate, something inappropriate to himself, doing some sort of crazy drugs or something, cursing out someone.
I do find it amusing that, you had that brief scene with him, obviously Jonah Hill and Christopher Mintz-Plasse, and it's almost like a quasi reunion of the Superbad crew, in that one brief scene.
Yeah, they kind of did a sequel, a mini sequel to Pineapple. This was in a lot of ways a spiritual sequel to Pineapple Express.
Right.
Because Rogen, James Franco wasn't one of the. He was pretty much a pretty main character. It was his house that it was taking place at.
Right.
and he was in there all the way through. I was kind of sad to see Michael Cera kind of only be used in the first act, but they did replace the Dick character with Danny McBride became the Dick for the rest of the movie. It was pretty funny.
Oh, I did enjoy his intro. That intro did have me dying, like, you know, how this fucker just comes out of nowhere. We don't even know where the fuck he came from. Just comes out of nowhere, starts cooking for these guys, and, you know, not knowing that, you know, they basically say they're gonna limit, you know, their food intake and all that, and this guy was doing everything in his power, you know, to pretty much have as much food as he wanted, have as much water as he wanted, and he just fuck it up for everybody else. To the point where I think his ass gets voted off, in the scene. And I think another thing also, a gag that also got me was him, like, wearing, like, one of James Franco's tuxes. It's, you know,
I forgot that part.
Right, you just see his son of a bitch lounging around in his tux. That, you know, I think that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And, you know, James was like, yo, this guy's got to go. And they all basically voted his ass out. I think, and also, it is one of my favorite cameos in that film, actually, was seeing Channing Tatum. And I don't really want to give too much away, but that shit had me dying also. I mean,
I was kind of hoping, because that one guy who was like the lead or I don't know if he was like kind of like the lead character, the guy who was in Knocked Up.
Jay Baruchel, yes.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, why'd they use him instead of like Paul Rudd? That would have been good, but it was still good. Everyone did a good job, and Paul Rudd actually had a little quick cameo that was funny.
Right, exactly. So, you know, you gotta take the good with the bad, you know.
The end was a little ridiculous. It really turned into a pop movie in like the last 5 minutes where, again, if I was in like a crowded theater and it was in the right frame of mind, it would have been I would have been fine with it, but something about it was like, wow, this is going full pop. Like the first act started like a real comedy movie, like in the way that everything was flowing along, it was really like a well-written comedy movie. The second act, and especially the third act, really got into like pop movie. Like it didn't start as a pop movie. It had a pretty solid like beginning, and then there were certain parts of it that were like, wow, this is okay, so this is a pop movie.
Right. Then basically just reminding you, you know, first and foremost what it was. I understand. So you felt like, you know, given that condition that you were in when you saw that ending, you thought, okay, this is kind of pardon my French, gay.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. It was overly. You know what? And hey, I could have used some pot. I would have enjoyed it a lot. I would have felt better, and I would have enjoyed it a lot better at that moment. But no, I felt like it was too random and ridiculous just for the sake of having random stuff at the end.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
but it was cool. It was original. You know, it was original in a lot of ways.
I mean, right, compared to the stuff that's coming out now, then yeah, you know, that's supposed to be commercially bankable, then yeah, it was definitely original. So
and you know, to Seth Rogen's credit, you know, it is a pop movie, but have you ever seen such a high budget pop movie in your life?
No, if you really want to count those Cheech and Chong films, but I think those were made for little to nothing, to be honest with you.
Oh, even what else was there? Harold and Kumar, they had that tiger. That tiger was clearly just that was pretty poorly animated. It wasn't poorly animated, but that was about the most they spent effect-wise in that movie was a CGI tiger.
Right, and in the case of This Is the End, it was just the well. Should I give it away? There was quite a few creatures that you know that did show up and did all kinds of damage.
They all looked cool. They all looked pretty cool too.
Right, very phallic-y. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. That end one was a bit ridiculous. See, there were some moments that were so ridiculous, but if you were under a certain influence, you would have been like, oh, okay. That's right. Cool.
And just for the record, I was telling my friends this when we saw it, that I do want the last image with Craig Robinson in that film, you know, as my GIF. Just seeing that son of, I mean, it was too funny. Remember when he was trying to help out, obviously, his boys, and, you know, going to take on this creature that was going to, like, you know, devour them, and the next thing you know, out of nowhere, this light comes out. It's like this beam of light just hits him, and he's shaking. To me, I thought that was funny.
Yeah. Well, he's consistently funny. He had the funniest line in the movie, too, when they were doing the candid camera stuff and they ran out of water, if you remember.
Very vaguely.
He was like, alright, spoiler alert. Skip a minute ahead if you don't want to hear.
Right.
There was a scene, this was my favorite part. I couldn't stop laughing. There was a scene where they had just ran out of water, and they were all doing the candid camera stuff, and Craig Robinson sits in front of the camera. He goes, I drank my own urine today, and I was pleasantly surprised because I always thought, ew, pee stank. but it was pretty good.
Right.
That's the fucking funniest line.
And then it's weird when you juxtapose it with, like, Rogan, and you're like, what the hell is Rogan doing? And it's like, oh, you nasty.
Well, if you haven't seen it, go see it. It was funny. It was worth seeing. I guess, you know, who knows? Like, is this crew, this whole Apatow Rogan crew, like, are they going strong, or are they at that point where they're at a plateau? Because, you know, it's Hollywood. Look, directors only last 10 years, and the reason is because if you're telling the same type of story over and over, people get bored. It's good directors, the good directors who stick around tell a different story every time. But there are certain people who have certain excesses, and after a while, people just as high as people could get on excesses, and just as much as people could get into certain trends and excesses, that's as quickly as they give it up. So, you know, Seth Rogen always does the buddy stuff, but you know, you've come to expect that with him as in terms of a writer. So he's always doing a buddy sort of movie, and you know, all those product placement jokes, which, you know, by the way, before we get into that, who knows? Will the public get bored? I guess that's the only concern. These guys have been around for like since 40-Year-Old Virgin. They've been pretty strong. So, can they keep it up, or can they find a way to change with the times, or is this going to get outdated soon? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, as long as they have, you know, a fan base, I don't think they're going to be going anywhere anytime soon. And I mean, and if worse comes to worse, like, you know, their next film is like a box office dud, you know, there's still other mediums for them to, you know, showcase their talent or lack thereof, i.e. television. And now, look at the market now. Now Netflix is getting into the swing of things, and you have Amazon, Redbox, you know, so they still have other avenues that they can still use if, you know, they are no longer, quote unquote, box office commodities. I mean, Seth Rogen and I guess James Franco, I'm definitely not worried about, you know, in terms of losing any steam anytime soon, because last time I checked, Franco was in that film Oz the Great and Powerful, and I think that made over $500 million, you know, worldwide.
Did you see that movie?
No disrespect to them, but you'd have to pay me to go see that.
I was on the airplane, and I got a free viewing of it, and I turned it off within like 15 minutes. I couldn't watch it.
Well, really? It was that bad to you?
Yeah, it was like in the airplane you get a free viewing, like it's playing above all the seats, and then you just put your headphones in if you want to listen to it. And I redirected the headphones function after about 15 minutes. It was a lot of CGI. It was a lot of bubblegum.
Right. I don't know why, because I understand why. You know, because they're trying to transport people into a magical place. But I think it's laughable when, you know, one of the actors or stars of the film, Zach Braff, is in a big film like that, and he uses this Kickstarter to set up an account to fund his latest project. And I'm thinking to myself, doesn't this guy like know anybody in the industry with money, because I mean, right now he's on the inside. I'm sure he has an agent and he has a publicist and lawyers who pretty much know people with money. So why the hell does he need to ask the public to take their hard-earned cash and whatnot to fund his latest project?
What project is that again? What is that project he wants to do?
This I haven't like looked at it in a while, but from what I can remember, it has to do with some struggling actor whose dad used to send his son, the actor's son, into like a private school, and the father's lost a lot of money, I guess, due to a Ponzi scheme or whatnot. So now the actor has to teach his son. You know, he has to homeschool his son basically, and the stuff that he learns along the way. So it's one of those coming of age stories. But to me, I just think it's ridiculous that he would, go out of his way to ask people, his fans to give him money. And I think he's raised just enough money. He's raised enough money and then some to get the project greenlit. So.
Is this based on his life, or?
I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I just think it was his dream project.
Okay.
So,
Well, the thing with Oz and the new Willy Wonka was like this too. You got to use effects, whether they be CGI or visual effects or old school puppetry effects or whatever. It's got to supplement the story. It's got to. Got to. And with the CGI stuff, it's so easy for it not to.
Right. And you felt like it was very excessive.
If it lends itself to the story, then it all makes sense. But if it's in your face, a random CGI scene, it completely breaks the story. So it might keep the kids involved, but you already lost half your audience. And come on, over the long course of time, which is more classic? The original or the new one? Oh, obviously they're making money, but
right.
Come on, they could make money and also find a way to use that CGI a little more responsibly.
Well, what's his name recently? Gene Wilder, kind of called them out on that, saying that he didn't really particularly care for that latest entry as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
There's a 1-minute scene where there's a random CGI boat that doesn't even look like it's following any sort of real life physics. That's floating, looking like a cutscene from a video game, floating down a river of chocolate. But then when they get to their next destination, all the people are just out and just walking regularly. Because you can't ask an actor to draw on something that just isn't real.
Right.
It takes a very certain type, but when you have a big group ensemble cast, it's just not practical. Like, if you saw... Okay, here's another difference. If you saw 100 Munchkins, which, by the way, is 100 employed people, singing to you, you'd be like, wow, all these little guys are dressed up, and the kids could suspend their disbelief and be amazed. Like, it's easy to draw on something that you see right in front of you, but in this version, they have one actor that's duplicate, who, by the way, got paid one time for being one actor, and that was duplicated via CGI 100 times. So yeah, the CGI guys got paid, that's cool, but now you're asking actors to imagine that there's 100 different ones of the same guy here, so
and
how
also
can
you're also denying, work for, other little people, and that's the PC term to use, and, I just think, I thought it lost that charm,
It's weird because it's feigned emotions, and that's the shit that you expect from a TV show, but you don't expect that from a movie. Movies cost money. But with the CGI stuff, you are forcing actors who are otherwise good actors to also feign emotions like they would with a cheesy script on TV or something like that.
Well, it is the nature of the beast. Now, just out of curiosity, did we touch upon, like, the possible future of cinema in a sense of, like, the ticket prices?
Yes. I don't know if we did on here. Maybe we did. You were saying Steven Spielberg and Lucas said that basically they're alluding to, like, what I felt like was a class separation because they're going to drive the ticket prices up through the roof.
Right. I couldn't believe that, because when I paid for This Is the End, I couldn't believe that. I think the ticket price was like 14 and change. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And this is in the city. I'm like, I mean, I know it's like a big budget film, but I'm like, really? It costs like that much? And I didn't even pay for 3D. So, And
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, shit, if this is 14 and changes on a regular goddamn screen, what the hell's 3D and IMAX, like $40 or something like that?
I know. You can find little places
No, I
that
could
have
find,
cheap
I know I could,
movies, but
right, I know I could find little theaters, but I'm just surprised, like I went to see it in the theaters all because I wanted to, meet up with, a couple old friends of ours and all that, so I just didn't expect it, to be that expensive, so, that's what I was a little surprised at, in regards to the ticket prices.
yeah, it's going crazy. It's going up, up, up.
You're right. Jeez.
Well, okay, so we saw This Is the End. Do you have anything more to talk about with that?
No, but I actually do want to touch on your the documentaries that you saw. Actually.
Okay, well, yeah, I saw a ton of documentaries. I also saw The Heat. I don't know which you want to get into first.
All right, then let's go commercial. Let's touch on The Heat and see how bad it was. Or let me hear.
Now, let me first ask you before I tell you, from being someone who saw it, what have you heard word of mouth? What is your impression of it as someone who still hasn't seen it based on word of mouth?
I feel from the looks of it, and I didn't even see the damn trailer, to be honest with you. I've only seen very small clips from the TV spots, and it looks to me like, yeah, it's, Sandra Bullock is the star of the film, but it's really a vehicle parlayed to Melissa McCarthy.
Yes.
And so I'm on the nose. I hit it right on the nose.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I figured. That's what I figured. It was like, yeah, Melissa McCarthy, she's talented, and she was big hit with Bridesmaids, but we need a name actress to sort of solidify, to legitimize this film being made.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, let's pick somebody who has a decent box office track record and who the American public likes, obviously.
And that's exactly what they did with the other
Heat.
and the other movie too that just came out a couple months ago with Jason Bateman. Identity Thief. He was the main character. He was the star in terms of on paper. This is the one you know. However, this is the Melissa McCarthy show for the next hour and a half.
Oh yeah, that's what I figured. This is what I figured. Yeah.
It was so funny. It was so funny. It wasn't like, if you were to critically break down the movie, it wouldn't be a great movie by any means.
Uh-huh.
But it was funny. It was consistently funny. It was every minute something funny happened.
Right.
And the whole theater was into the whole way through. And I had heard from other people the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you hadn't seen the trailer, I imagine that's why you weren't hyped to see it. The trailer was very well done.
Okay.
And there's some times where a trailer is very well done and the movie is shit, and then you gotta walk away saying, you know what, all those millions, you gotta throw an extra $1 million to whoever cut that trailer.
Right.
But in
exactly.
this trailer, the trailer was very good, but
Mm-hmm.
the trailer was good in setting up the theme or the feel of the movie, which really was consistent throughout the whole movie. And the trailer really did not show that much. The trailer, if you do see the trailer, you notice that it only shows a couple scenes. It really, unlike a lot of trailers which go through the whole flow of the movie, this trailer really only shows a few scenes.
As opposed to most trailers that they'll show you everything from beginning, middle, and end, and just cut it in like a 2-minute piece or whatever the hell. How long an average trailer runs these days.
Yeah. That woman, Melissa McCarthy, is ridiculous.
Ridiculously funny. Like, she pretty much, in other words, she can school most of the current comedic actors in this day and age for the most part.
Let's put it this way. She has such a high energy level that, although a lot of critics said this, that I was reading, they said they had such a good comedic chemistry, the two of them, which they did. They had such a good comedic chemistry that's a shame they didn't have such a good script. And I didn't realize that because, well,
you were having such a good time.
It was just a dumb script, whatever. But I mean, it was just a dumb Hollywood. Come on, it's for people to be entertained. It's not supposed to be too serious. But in that, it was fine. And the fact that her energy was so high, the chemistry was so good, She took what was mediocre and made it funny.
I believe that. I
And
do.
there's a couple little criticisms I could have, but in general, the chemistry was so good that it lasted you from start to finish.
Okay, and I know that wasn't a long film. It was like an hour and a half. Like a 90-minute film.
Yeah, it might have been like 110 minutes or something like
Oh.
that. It was. I had so much. Let's put it this way: at the end, people watched the whole credits.
Like hoping for something to happen.
Yeah, because what they did was they kind of hit a couple credits on the screen, and then they went back and showed like one more quick little scene. But then they did more credits, but the credits were like stylized. It was almost the credits and the title sequences was almost like a 70s movie.
Really?
Like a 70s cop sort of thing, like with 70s music and weird like pictures that had like a red filter on them.
Okay.
But Melissa McCarthy was ridiculous from start to finish. Like, enter a room, completely curse out anyone, completely curse out her boss. It was like looking at a female fat version of Stone Cold Steve Austin. She was completely belligerent. She was completely dominating. She was completely against the system.
Right.
And it was completely entertaining.
I was going to think like another analogy would be like, I thought you were going to say like a female version of the late great Sam Kinison, just going by your description.
You know what was good? She was not gimmicky. She really is a good actress. Like, there are moments and little scenes which show her the reason why her characters act the way they do. Like, maybe she was hurt or maybe she was taken advantage of. Like, there's little scenes that show like that she has a heart. So her scenes are not like gimmicky. It's not over the top.
Right. So she's still able to generate empathy with from the audience, in these quieter moments, which is I find hard to believe.
Unlike Kinison, she's not screaming for no reason to get to liven up the crowd. She's screaming for a reason, and it's fucking hysterical.
Gotcha.
Like, and it could be just that someone pissed her off minorly. Someone pissed her off minorly, and she's that crazy. So now when someone pisses her off majorly, you're expecting her to get even more crazy.
Right. Like there's going to be an explosion. Got it.
Yeah, she's completely explosive the whole way through. Completely throws insults at anyone. And I'm talking she throws insults at Sandra Bullock. And when she'll throw that's why the character kind of goes after trouble, because she's willing to take anything head on. And she will curse out the baddest element in the room. But even if she's left with just like good, decent people, she's then cursing them out. So she's a nonstop asshole, and it's great. It's great. And now I hear now she's getting these two movies kind of put her over, especially this one. So now I think she's self-producing, directing, writing, and acting in something called Tammy that's coming out next year. That's going to be completely just her own thing.
Might as well be, I mean, if her box office track record, it does suggest otherwise, I mean, yeah, right now she's a legitimate star, if you will.
Yeah, you know what it was?
She easily, I know she easily steals the show in Bridesmaids. To be personal, I didn't really care for the other characters. I was just curious as to what the hell she was going to do next.
Let's put it this way. She was the girl from Bridesmaids, then she was the girl from Mike and Molly, and then she was the girl that's going to be in that movie with Sandra Bullock, but now everyone knows her name. And she's now Melissa you're right, she did the necessary steps in order for everyone to know what her name is, instead of just like laugh at, oh, that's that funny side character.
Right.
And there was one scene where her husband was actually in the movie. There was this little
right. He also made a cameo in Bridesmaids as well, in the airplane sequence where she's trying to hit on him.
I gotta go see Bridesmaids. What is the cameo in Bridesmaids?
Well, they're on a plane, and she's throwing every line at this son of a bitch, and he's not getting turned on by it at all. That's basically.
Okay, well this was exactly the opposite. This was there was a running theme that like random people from the neighborhood. She's kind of like, have you ever seen that video of the honey badger on YouTube?
The honey badger on YouTube? I've heard of it, but
it's like the most badass animal that doesn't give a shit about anyone and will tear into anyone.
Okay.
She kind of like exists in that world where even like her parents see her and they're like, "Fuck you." So she kind of just like struts down the street and causes trouble.
Okay.
But she has good intentions. But there's a running gag throughout the movie that random guys that she slept with once come up to her and they're like, "Come on, give me one more chance." And she's like, "I fucked you, it's over." like completely, she's like in the dominant role all the time, you know?
Right.
So she was at a bar and her husband in real life comes up to her and she's like, "Come on, that was the most special, wonderful night. Give me one more chance." And she's like, "Listen, you fucking nerd, fuck off." She completely like tells off her husband and calls him a loser and says, "You'll never get with me again, and that was one night and you need to deal with that."
I don't know why, but that actually brings back memories of this small scene in Gran Torino, of all things. The scene where Clint rescues the Asian from a couple of black guys.
Mm-hmm.
And, because, this one white guy who's trying to be all hood, he doesn't step up to the plate to save her. And, when Clint does save her, tells her to get into his truck and all that kind of stuff, you have that one white kid, kind of says, "Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man." And obviously Clint says, "Just shut the fuck up." I don't understand, why an old fate like yourself wants to be a spade. Now, that kid is actually his son, and I always crack up that the fact that the father, schools the son in the scene.
Wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was his kid.
Yeah, that was his dad. That was his kid.
I just drove through, I went from San Francisco to LA on the Pacific Coast Highway. And you go through Carmel, New York, and that's like where he's from. Or that's like where he lives.
Oh, okay.
And I heard
we don't know the exact right. We don't know the exact address, but we know he lives around there. So.
No, what? Well, there's a story that goes that he was the mayor of that town.
Yes, he was. He was a mayor for once for a hot minute, if I'm not mistaken.
But do you know how he became the mayor?
No, I don't know the whole story. To be honest with you.
I'm not sure how completely accurate this is.
Mm-hmm.
But the story goes, he was drinking and getting arrested on the regular in that town, where they would put him in the drunk tank. He would get arrested so often that he got to know all the cops and judges. And they said, this guy's drunk and he fucks up, but he's pretty cool.
Right.
And he just got to know the inner workings of the system from getting into fights and little stuff like that. And as a result, over the course of time, when he was ready to get, I guess, more mature or stop partying or whatever, he became the mayor of that town because everyone knew him.
Right. Now, was this was this during when he was already an established star, or?
I think so.
Okay.
Because I mean,
that's why he probably.
How else would the town drunk become?
Right. No, because I was thinking he wasn't getting arrested during his Rawhide days because he shot a show, a TV western called Rawhide, and he played this character by the name of Rowdy Yates. Funny, I think he probably took some of that character with him when he was getting, taken into custody. But for the most part, I guess I can rule that out. So it's probably when he was an established star that they pretty much just gave him a slap on the wrist for the most part.
He's still going. He's been in a movie a year since I think movies were invented.
Well, to the people, the Bieber generation and our generation, it seems that way. To be honest with you.
Well, even the years where you didn't hear much from him, he was still doing stuff. He's been pretty nonstop, right?
Yeah, the last film he did recently was Trouble with the Curve.
Mm-hmm.
which also stars Amy Adams and Justin Timberlake, and I think that film did all right, for the most part. But yeah, he's always keeping himself busy. It's not like it's not like he's not gonna have trouble finding work. He'll always get work, or he'll just make work for himself, just to keep himself busy. And I think that's like one of the secrets in terms of like keeping yourself active, and even in an advanced age, you have a good outlook on life, and you just keep yourself active. It doesn't matter what you're doing, because in a way, retirement, in a way, kind of signifies a certain form of death. I hate to be harsh.
Going pretty morbid there.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, listen. You're talking to a guy that worked with a 94-year-old at the time, so he was still.
What was the 94-year-old's job function? Like, what was his what did he do?
Last time I checked, he was an actor. So he was. He's like.
I thought you were like lugging. Saying. I thought you were like lugging crates with the 94-year-old.
Yeah. Well, funny guy. No, but I think I lug boxes with this, like, the guy in his 70s at this point. So, but yeah, most of these guys that I have known over the years that keep themselves active. They know that once they retire, they know that it's like sort of like inching toward death's door, so they try to do something to liven themselves and just keep themselves busy for the most part.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. What's that?
No, that's all I had to say.
In terms of The Heat, there were a couple criticisms.
Yeah.
One thing that also made it good was that they put a lot of actors that were comedians and comedic actors in the movie.
Right.
So it really upped the comedy value, because just when you have that many people on set working together, it isn't gonna be like everyone's looking towards one source of comedic inspiration. So you kind of up your game when you're in a higher talent pool, and I think that really helped a lot of probably the improv stuff in the movie. For instance, even minor characters were people like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy before. I've seen that guy in that show. Oh yeah, that guy's a comedian. Oh, I've seen her before. And even Bill Burr played like a random relative of Melissa McCarthy.
Oh, okay.
So you have a comedian who is pretty much like a high level comedian.
Right.
And at this point, he's playing like a side character, so it really just ups the game a lot, like everyone had good comedic timing. They even had villains, or like people who are like minor villains, or just people in the department that are in your way, because you know how those cop movies work. They even had those people as comedians, and while it was cool because they didn't just have a generic person, like a generic cop character in those roles, it kind of... Were you shuffling some cards there?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm listening. There's nothing to do with it. No, keep going. I'm sorry. I forgot that sound is omnidirectional these days,
Yeah, you're trying to be Gambit over there.
Yes, mon ami, I am.
Okay, so there were certain times where the villains, and even the main villains, or the higher up villains, were comical, where they were not threatening. Even though they were doing bad things, because they could randomly bust out like an insult or a zinger or a comedic line. It was good for the comedy of it. It was good for the funny parts, but it wasn't necessarily threatening because you had all comedians in every role of your movie.
Right. Oh, okay. So there was really no threat, no legitimate threat for the heroes of the piece, correct?
In a way, they were doing bad things because the movie was telling us they were doing bad things, but when we got a chance to know them, they were like goofy guys. which was funny because it was like a misdirection, because you'd expect people doing bad things to be like really badass, which they weren't.
Right.
So it definitely helped the comedy value, but in terms of storytelling, the threat was very reduced because you had like funny fuckers in each role.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. Well, I guess they wanted to play it safe, I guess it's the same problem with, I guess you ever seen Miss Congeniality and that sequel afterwards that, they suffer the same problem in the sense that, quite sure you have actors who could be funny, in a comedy, even though they're playing the antagonist.
Yeah.
But they don't pose much of a threat, and you could pretty much see that on screen.
Yeah.
That they don't pose much of a threat. So in your opinion, you felt like if they had somebody who was a strong actor or actress who could pose a threat to the comical hero, so you thought that the film would have been better?
I felt like the actors who were playing the villains were treating each scene like an improv comedy sketch and not like a scene in the movie where the villains are taking over or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Which made it funny, which made it consistently funny, but at the same time, I guess that was my criticism.
Oh, okay.
There was also other things, like Melissa McCarthy, she was just funny as shit. There was even multiple parts in the movie where she was like making fun of this dude who was albino, and it was kind of weird because, like, I don't know, with comedy, I like it when people are getting made fun of for things they can control, not things they can't control in a way. It's kind of cheap to be making fun of something someone can't control,
Right.
Or it could be like kind of mean-spirited, but she was just so funny and so on that those, like, the insults she was slinging at this guy were the whole theater was just laughing.
Okay. So, was it tastefully done, in your opinion?
I think it was so funny it didn't matter. It was crass, It was rude, but it was funny.
Gotcha.
And the whole theater liked it, and I heard from, like, family members that probably don't even care too much about movies that they went and saw it and liked it. So, there was a certain charm. That's the thing with McCartney. She's charming at the same time she's being rude and obnoxious.
Right. Yeah, not a lot of people can pull that off.
And, you get Sandra Bullock in there, and that's just money, so, people... I mean, come on, she's the draw, but McCarthy was the show.
Right, yeah, she's the draw, but McCarthy was the real star of that piece. I understand.
That's my whole thing on it. I really enjoyed it start to finish. If you were gonna grade the movie from like a critical scale, it wouldn't get much over like a 60% or 6 out of 10 or whatever.
Right.
But it was enjoyable. It was ridiculous and raunchy, but it was enjoyable. And it was kind of making fun of itself the whole time. Like there was another suspension of disbelief, just like with the villains. There were certain situations that were really over the top. That was like, this is just some Hollywood construction. Like it seemed to break reality how like things would move. Like some things were very unrealistic. Mm-hmm. But again, those parts were also the comedy covered up everything.
Gotcha.
And sometimes those things were done on purpose. Like it was not supposed to be taken seriously, and the film kept telling you that.
Well, you gotta take the good with the bad these days.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Yeah, we have yet to see like a damn near perfect, flawless film these days. For whatever reason being.
I know a perfect film coming up.
What? You haven't seen it? Have you seen it?
Sharknado on Sci-Fi Channel with Tara Reid. What if a tornado was spitting out sharks at people?
Are you being serious or are you joking? Because I can't tell.
That's not a fucking joke. There is a movie coming out on Sci-Fi Channel
called Shark Tornado.
Called Sharknado with Tara Reid, and the trailer goes like this: Sharks, tornadoes, Sharknado. Need we say anything else?
You gotta be shitting.
And it shows a woman screaming at the camera, and in the background you see a tornado literally spitting out hundreds of sharks that are angry.
Holy shit.
I couldn't believe this when I saw it.
Yeah.
They were playing it on the news. It was so ridiculous that the news was like, we gotta show you this.
Right. Oh, you must be joking.
It's not a joke.
Now you've incentivized me to actually take a look at this trailer, that's out there. I know Sci-Fi Channel has been notorious for like, you know, making some B-movie schlock. But that I think that's pretty much. I mean, what you just told me now is probably the cream of the crop. Sharknado. So basically, they're combining Twisters with Jaws.
Yes.
Sharknado.
Yes. Speaking of completely ridiculous situations.
Mm-hmm. Sharknado. I'm trying to like, you know, see if I can legitimize it myself by just saying it. Like, I'm going to go and watch Sharknado. Sharknado. I can't.
Oh yeah, this is what it said. It said, sharks, tornadoes, Sharknadoes. Enough said. And it just showed like some clips of sharks being thrown out of a tornado.
Twitter, Viagra, Twitagra. I mean, that was actually taken from a film. Actually, that was from Hot Tub Time Machine. They try to come up, stuck in the '80s, and they're trying to come up with crazy ideas. You know, it's like, yeah, let's combine like certain things that, you know, would be awesome. You know, and that's the first thing that came to mind.
That was cool. Hot Tub Time Machine was cool.
It was cool. I mean, to me, it was a homage to all those John Cusack films that he used to do in the '80s.
Yeah.
You know, Better Off Dead and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was interesting that he would, you know, poke fun at his previous image. Nowadays, he's actually, you know, doing these smaller films that are actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, where he's a disturbed writer. John Cusack is a disturbed writer.
Right. I think that was like 1408 or something like that.
That's like a lot. Yeah, a lot of movies he's a writer.
Oh, okay. Except maybe like he'll do an occasional blockbuster in the form of like, say, 2012. But for the most part, he you know, he's like one of the few stars that I actually will look for, you know, crazy original material. So I'll give him props for that.
And I don't mean to sound. It was what other actors in the '80s were doing that man with a problem shtick better than Cusack or Michael J. Fox.
Yeah, I mean they definitely conveyed the everyman on screen, and it was definitely believable. You know, with Cusack doing like, was it Say Anything, and or Michael J. Fox doing obviously the Back to the Future films. You know, in his case, he was a man with a big problem. You know, fucker was stuck in time in the past.
That's a big problem. That's almost as big of a real life problem as Sharknado's.
I can't say that seriously. Sharknado, without like, you know, without even giggling to myself, you know.
Like, who would even think of that in a moment where a Sharknado was coming at you? If it was a real thing, you wouldn't even think to say Sharknado. You'd be so fucking scared.
Right, exactly. And it, you know, like, or being, let's say you're a meteorologist. You're like, yeah, we got a Category 7 tornado, and apparently sharks are flying out of it. And they're, you know, they can't swim, but they're pretty much chomping on anything within their vicinity. What the hell do you tell the people? We would tell the folks to stay in their homes, but the sharks are, you know, coming in and they're gonna do damage flying into their trailer park homes and whatnot. And
also, could a shark really do much damage if it just fell on grass? Like,
well, I mean, with the right enough speed, I'm sure like they'll probably fly through like, you know, certain houses and shit like that. I think the real question is, would they still? I mean, so apparently, I take it in this film, the sharks are going to be alive and well, even though they're spinning around hundreds of miles per hour.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
And I guess the real question is, why do we keep talking of it? So this is like a train wreck.
Well, you know, you brought it up, pal.
Before we get into the documentaries, we'll use this as a bridge to start getting a little more serious. I also saw on Netflix End of Watch, which came out last year with Jake Gyllenhaal, Michael Pena.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
No, I heard great things about it.
It's really good. It was really good.
Okay.
It
So
kind
it's
of
bas-
what's it?
so it's like it basically chronicles these two cops' patrol and lives for the most part.
Yeah, it's probably nothing you haven't not seen. Have not. I'm saying this the wrong way. You've seen it before. It's the
Right.
LA. It's a LA cop genre, but it's also the handheld Cloverfield sort of deal.
Okay.
It's those two mixed
All right.
together, which you've seen both before, but it's done very well. And the characters
Oh,
are very. They have a certain chemistry between them that's very, I guess, charming is the word. It just felt cool. Like every scene in the movie felt cool. It felt like you were on a cool ride. It had a good flow. It's worth watching. I can't even remember that much about it in terms of specific scenes because a lot of it was that handheld camera sort of vibe. But it was definitely worth watching. The acting was all incredible, and they actually did something that is very hard to do in the handheld genre. Is that because this wasn't just like a disaster handheld sort of movie, they had time to like do this over the course of months or years, and it was kind of like a character piece. It was a character-driven handheld. Not all the shots were handheld, but there was enough of them, and it was a character-driven piece. And I guess that's kind of hard to do. You had the LAPD, but you made it character driven, and you made the audience care about the characters and stuff like that.
mm.
I don't know. I guess you don't have much of an opinion.
Well, how can I have an opinion when I didn't see it? So,
All right,
I
next.
mean.
Next movie. That was a good one. I saw that by random. That was good. All right, you want to get into these documentaries?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you getting bored shuffling your cards over there. I'll take your card shuffling as a cue to move on.
Oh, okay. Oh, is that going to be like something you want to?
Are those cards? Are those like business cards that you're sorting, or are those cards like a deck of cards that you're shuffling? Or
No, this is a deck.
this,
What I'm holding in my hand right now is like a 52 deck.
you are having. Oh, I thought you had a flip book that showed a horse running or something like that.
No. I'm just like, if this whole thing doesn't work, I'm trying to practice to see if I can make it in Vegas. So.
So you're trying anything at this point?
Oh, definitely. Can't hurt.
Yeah. Hey,
Give me an excuse.
what's it?
I'm giving myself an excuse to be in that hot ass heat in Nevada. I heard that there was a forest fire that happened recently. It was either in California or it was in Nevada,
Oh, I
and
don't know.
apparently like they had there was an elite fighting squad that perished. I would say it was like a double digits, like 10, 15 lost their lives. But it is crazy with this weather. So far, it's not bad over here. It's just in the high 80s. What's the weather like over there?
Perfect as always. We've had
In
a
other words,
little.
it's like.
What's it?
In other words, it's in the 90s or something like that, right?
Yeah, we've had a bit of a heat wave. It's probably up in the hundreds in the valley, but I'm down here by the water, so it remains pretty nice.
Oh, okay.
Nice temperature.
Gotcha.
Here's how it works. The valley gets the hottest. It could get up to like 115 degrees. The LA, the massive LA is kind of in the middle in terms of the water to valley, and then the water is the coolest. So if there was a day that was in LA 90 degrees, that might be 80 by the water and 100 in the valley.
Gotcha.
Okay, you want to do these documentaries?
Yeah, I've been stalling for a while, so I mean.
I was in a documentary mood, and documentaries are great because they're not always made. They might have their money up front to go and make the movie, but it's not like they're making the movie specifically for capitalist gain. Sometimes these things are just funded by PBS or whatever channel,
Or just to basically get the truth out there.
Yeah.
Mainly first and foremost. And in my opinion, obviously in your opinion, like the best documentaries, they point out the information that are so profound where you're like, wow, I did not really know that.
Yeah.
It's funny you should mention it. Actually, the last doc that I watched was Paradise Lost, which was about the.
Oh, that's an old one.
Yes, I think did it win an Oscar? Correct.
I think it might have. That was like what, in the 80s or
No,
the
no, no, no,
early 90s?
no. Well, it was about the 90s. It was about a particular crime that was committed where, three boys in Arkansas
Oh, right.
were killed, and here's the thing though, three boys were sent to prison for like close to like 20 years or something like that, and they finally got out because due to inconclusive evidence that was brought up by one. It was brought up by these filmmakers in addition to criminologists who decided to take on the case for the most part. So that was the last documentary I saw.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Well, there's a lot of good things. The people are there because they want to be. They're good. There's a lot of good filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these documentaries, if shown to the right political person, can change someone's life.
Oh, I know.
And
in the case of these boys, they actually got out. They're free men now for the most part. So.
And look, even if you're a world traveler, which most people are not,
mm-hmm.
this gives you a chance to see a part of the world that you wouldn't go if you were a tourist.
Exactly.
Like some of these places you will never go to, and you don't want to go there. So in a way, you got to be grateful that these filmmakers spent like up to a year in some of these like hellholes.
Right. Some of these, it's amazing, like, the dedication some of these filmmakers take. Sometimes it could be like, it could be a year, it could be 10 years, it could be 5 years, or 20 years, In the case of the filmmakers with Paradise Lost, I think it took them a while. Like, it was like over a decade.
Some of these things, like, document, like, a person's life for 10, 20, 30, 40 years,
Yeah. And that's the secret. Like, if you want to be a documentary filmmaker, I think Ken Burns said it best. Like, first and foremost, you better get used to being broke. That's number one. Number two, I don't think he said this, but I believe in this, that you really have to fall in love with your subjects.
Yeah.
You have to. You just have to love your subjects, or else guess what? It's not going to work.
And video has truly helped. It's weird because documentaries are shot on digital for the and it's much better when they're shot on digital, because if you were shooting on film, you'd have certain constraints that you don't necessarily have on video.
Right.
But at the same time, they are truly considered films, even if they're shot on a frickin' VHS.
Right.
Which is not the case with a drama. Someone shoots something on a low grade video with a drama, they will say that's not a film. That thing's shot on a camcorder.
Right. Now, getting to you, what docs did you go and see?
I'll start with the least impactful and work my way up.
Least impactful.
Yeah.
Okay.
This will get better. Because I saw a fucking ton of them. Or I'll start off with a couple quick descriptions, and then I'll work my way into the main course. But they were all generally good, or I enjoyed all of them. The least serious, or the least the least world-threatening or life-threatening would be a film called Knuckleballers, which was about. It had Tim Wakefield, and it had what's the guy who was on the Mets?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Now he's on Toronto, I guess.
He's in Toronto again.
R.A. Dickey. Yeah, so the film talks about how... Now, I love... I know you like baseball a lot. I always love pitching. So I love pitching more than the rest of it. So different pitches, I was always trying to throw curveballs and slurve balls, and I would throw like little knuckleballs and
like a two cutter or two seamer, four seamer.
I was never good at cutters or sliders. I started learning the slider only a couple years ago, but I always had a sharp curveball, looping curve. My fastball was strong.
Yeah, my curveball in my heyday was like, it basically came in kind of like Doc Gooden's like sort of a Sir Charles, where it would start off at the top and then just drop near the end when it got to the plate.
You had like a tumbler.
Yeah, it was quite a tumbler of a curveball. That's for damn sure.
Were you ever able to throw a screwball?
No,
Me either.
I never even like tried to attempt it.
I
Yeah.
tried, but I guess my arm didn't have the motion. That one's bad for you. But I always like trick pitches. Like I always like researching the, the ephus pitch, which is basically just a softball pitch that you throw up so high that even if the batter hits it, it's going to just hit the ground.
Right.
The gyro ball, which is like a super slider, which was made by like a Japanese computer, which only like this is. Some people say it's impossible. Some people claim that like 3 people in the world could do it.
Right.
But this film talks about the knuckleball and how it's not even like a pitch that's meant to be ferocious at all, and how it's just a trick pitch. But there's a couple people, and there's only about 4 people at a time who could make a living pitching this. And right now, the only person in the major leagues who could pitch this is R.A. Dickey in this country.
Right.
But what I never knew is that with the knuckleball, all the guys who have ever thrown a knuckleball have a fraternity and will go out and hang out and go golfing and stuff like that together. Because for the needs of survival, these knuckleballers have to look to an older guy who threw it because they're the only ones who understand how it is. Because a pitching coach will just tell a pitcher like, yeah, throw harder, all right, break it more, A pitching coach will tell you how to throw a pitch that gets your pitch better across the plate, but a knuckleball, how can you advise it? It's not even like a real pitch. It's just
right. Just make sure. In other words, basically, it seems like the only thing you can tell a knuckleball is just make sure you get it over the plate.
You could try, but as the knuckleball, the person throwing it, the person hitting it, the person catching for it, and the manager have no clue what the fuck is going to happen. So it's complete. These guys' life and livelihood is completely based on chance.
Right.
If you can imagine how nerve-wracking that is.
Right, and the beauty of the knuckleballer is, as opposed to other pitches, the knuckleball doesn't spin as opposed to like a 2-seamer or a 4-seamer or a curveball slider. The knuckleball is just like this. It's just a ball just coming at you and it's frozen in time. And when you hit it, it's almost like you're hitting like some heavy rock. If you don't get the good part of the bat on it, at least that's what I've always, gathered from the nature of it. What do you think?
Yeah, you have to pray that it's a windy day if you're throwing it. And if you're a hitter, you have to pray that it's not a windy. You have to just pray that you hit it.
Right, exactly.
And it's so weird because it seems like such a weak. It's because they were saying most pitching is about power, dominance, but this is just a fucking frustrating gimmick.
Right. Right. Like if a changeup is an off-speed pitch, is just to like it's like a fastball coming at you, but it slows down when it gets to the plate. Then the knuckleballer is like the off-speed pitch.
Yeah, you don't know what the speed will be.
Right.
You don't know what the direction will be.
Right.
So if you're into baseball, it's worth checking out. It was a cool movie. It was a cool little documentary. It was a little bit like a baseball glorification movie.
Well, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised when are we going to see a story on steroids? I'm surprised we're not going to get that.
No, of course not.
Right.
That never happened.
Never happened, or it probably never will happen.
Never happened. It never happened. No one's ever on steroids.
You believe that?
Of course not.
Okay, I was about to. My heart skipped a beat, just a little bit. So
there was Okay, so I'll start then with Elements. Places. Now we talked about the most lighthearted. I also watched 2 documentaries about that both had a theme of winter. One and poverty in a way. One was kind of sad and one was actually a little more happy. The first one was called American Winter, and it was about how it was shot in the Pacific Northwest in Portland, and it was about how people's homes got foreclosed and there's no opportunity and there's no jobs and people living off welfare and they never thought they'd have to. And the film kind of made an argument. It showed like 8 working class families who the shit's hitting the fan on them.
Gotcha.
And it kind of just made the argument that an ounce of social prevention in terms of social services will cost less over the course of time than feeding a homeless family. And it was well made. It was a bit sad though, and I don't really have much else to say about it. It was worth seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on. I saw a great movie.
I'm sorry. I sound like I do come across as heartless, but
it was what it was. It was a lot about the system and the welfare system and how in this country there seems to be a shift around the 70s or 80s where people used to help each other more in a way, and then it got to a point where people said, well, people who are going through hard times deserve it because they're not hardworking. So it's a lot of it's left up to your own individual opinion, but the film was trying to make the message of social services and stuff like that.
Right.
Then I saw something this morning which was great called Happy People. This is really really cool to see. It was called Happy People: Life on the Taiga, Taiga, and it's about people who live in Siberia and they have no contact basically with the rest of the world for a good portion of the year, and they live in like the frozen tundra doing ice fishing, and the men go into like basically 1,000-mile wilderness just catching little beavers and stuff like that, little sables and little squirrels and things like that. So it's an all year round, non-stop work job where they have a dog with them and they have to completely make thousands of traps out of trees. And they make the traps out of trees and put a little bit of bait there, and they catch all sorts of things, and they have to worry about bears and stuff like that. And the documentary crew followed them around in minus 50-degree weather for a year. And the people live completely off the land.
Really? Well, that would definitely give me an incentive to pretty much get out of the civilized world. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. It was a very hard lifestyle, but the people all seemed to be like happy with it in a way. And they would show like how the guy, the main character, he said the reason he got out here was that the Russian government brought him out here when he was 20 and told him, we'll be around by New Year's to give you food. And they never returned.
Really?
So he just had to learn how to survive in minus 50 degrees and catch what you could catch, eat what you could eat, and survive.
Talk about being a hunter and gatherer, huh?
Yeah, completely. It was almost like being a farmer in that it's constant work. You have to set up your traps throughout the year. Like, if you're building a house, you need to lay the wood down in spring, but then you need to wait 3 months and come back and then set the mulch on top to create insulation for your house. And then you have to come back and do other things and other things and other things. And it was so crazy. This one day, the guy goes out hunting, and keep in mind, he's only got like a dog with him. And they have snowmobiles to get around, which is kind of weird. That's like the only thing they have, though.
This is the only thing technologically advanced that they have.
Yeah, they have like a little motorboat, but keep in mind the motorboat is on a canoe that's been made from a carved out tree.
Now why the hell was he left out there? Was he a criminal? Like, did he do something wrong, or?
No, because in the old government, you'd have to do trapping animals for the government. But since that, I guess, all crashed, these people just live there independently now. And they each have a territory of like 500 square kilometers. And on that, they each have their dog or two, and they go out and it's just them and the dog for like 6 months. In the dark, cold Siberian winter, like 4 hours of sunlight a day. It's ridiculous. And there was even a part where he came home from like a long day of trapping and stuff like that. Yes. And he found out that the house that he was coming home to, because he has a couple little houses he built throughout his area, the house he came home to had a fallen tree through the house. Oh, wow. So, they kind of said, imagine you come home from work and you now have to build your house before you go to sleep. Rebuild your house.
That's insane.
And it was pretty interesting. I'm trying to think of anything else that happened in the movie. He kind of said it's more honest because it's about man outsmarting animal and animal outsmarting man, and whoever wins for that day is gonna stay alive. Whereas, like, if you were a farmer, it's a little more. He was saying it was fake in a way because you have to raise a cow from the time it's born. You have to feed it. You have to give it love, and if it wants a little treat, it comes up to you because it knows that it trusts you. But at the end of the day, after it gets fat, you're going to put a bullet right in its head. Whereas in the wilderness, every animal is an enemy to man, and every man is an animal.
Every man is an enemy to the animal.
Yeah, it was completely like living in the wild, and the camera crew stood with this guy for a year.
That's insane.
That was cool. That was called, again, that one was really worth seeing. That was called, what the fuck was that called? That was called Happy People.
How ironic.
Yeah, they said the people, it's like they're addicted to that lifestyle, you know, that's their best years because they love nature, they like working with nature.
Right.
And they were happy in that they were completely self-sufficient, and that you don't feel like more of a man than when you're roughing it every day and literally surviving in the wilderness.
That actually does sound like a cool yet dangerous litmus test, you know, in terms of proving your self-worth in this plane of life. That's what they're for.
I mean, what if something goes wrong? What if your motorboat crashes? What if your dog dies? Like, a million things could happen out there.
Right, and you don't have horses up there, so.
And they seem to know, like, they take certain cues from nature as to, like, when to do certain things. Like, when they see squirrels starting to get nuts, then they know, oh shit, we have to get nuts, you know? Or when they know that the bears are hibernating, then they don't have to leave their food up in a tree. Then they could leave their food out in the open as long as it's protected decently from mice or stuff like that.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, imagine. It's just incredible to imagine. Hold on, there's some police activity out here in Los Angeles.
Are you in trouble?
No, not this time.
Oh, not this time. Oh.
Then I saw a documentary that I believe is going to be talked about for a while, or going to be brought up in a lot of circles. In terms,
I'm assuming is it climate change or poverty?
It's neither. It's about rape in the U.S. military.
Oh yes, I heard a statistic on Bill Maher saying that it has gone up, and the latest case that I heard, and it's not really the latest, but this was like about a couple months ago. You had a guy in the Air Force whose job was to, like, you know, talk about, you know, sexual harassment in the workforce. Mm-hmm. And this son of a bitch was doing this, you know, the thing that he was teaching against, you know, about harassment. And the thing is that a lot of the, from what I've been hearing, is that it's not a lot of the cases have been recorded or have been brought to light.
Yes. Yes. Well, the stats are like this. Mm-hmm. 1 in 5 women in the armed services are sexually assaulted or raped at some point.
Jesus.
It's discouraged from being reported in a lot of cases, and in companies where they kind of brush it under the rug, it happens at a 3 times more rate. Not only that, but people who are rapists in real life, like, let's say let's say the number is 7% of individuals or whatever have been involved in some sort of thing where they were the aggressor. That number doubles in the military. 1, because it's a place that attracts aggressive people. 2, it's a perfect place for a predator because there's a chain of command. A predator will learn and manipulate that chain of command, because if there's always a set way to do things, there's always a set way to work around that.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it just showed about like 8 different women and 1 man, you know, who had been assaulted, and they talk about how every year there's so many cases that go unreported because the person you have to report to based on chain of command is 1, your attacker, 2, friends of your attacker, or 3, some other sort of thing. Like, for instance, let's say you reported a rape and or that you were attacked, and the person who was your commander just thought you were causing trouble. Like, you're the third woman who claimed that this week. What sort of game are you playing? Like,
right.
No sort of game here. You want to see the bruises?
Right, do you not see the bruises? Oh, those are just self-inflicted or whatever the hell they would think, you know.
Yes, and a lot of the times, look, if it's and here's the other problem, which I guess the big argument they were trying to make, which I believe they got overturned by showing this movie around, was that the Army has you can't sue someone for something that happens in the Army, so they have Army Court, but Army Court is essentially run by unit commanders who would kind of be involved in the shit in the first place.
Ooh,
So you have judge, jury, and executioner. Basically, it's like being taken advantage of by the police. It's corruption, you know?
Right.
And what the Army tells you is, don't dress provocatively. You should be more careful. Rape is an The Army or one of these places wrote that rape is an occupational hazard of the job.
It's fucked up.
Really fucked up.
That is fucked up. I mean, I always knew, like, you know, the military, you know, I call that the in-heat club, if you will. Because, you know, it doesn't matter where you are, everybody's in some form of heat, you know, and, you know, you're away from families, you're away from your friends and civilization for long periods of time. You know, you need to do something to pass the time and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, when nature calls in regards to situations like this, you know, you're just going to act on your impulses regardless of rank or regardless of rules and regulations. So,
yeah, it was really, really worth seeing because, you know, there's so much against these people that have, one, already been taken advantage of, but two, are now having to deal with a system that doesn't work. And the fact that everyone, in one way, you know, while it was happening, they got their backs turned on by their crew, and at the same point, they're getting their backs turned on by the whole system.
Jeez.
And they said, look, we're all sworn to be brothers and sisters in the Marines and all that stuff. Like, so if you get taken advantage by someone you thought you could trust with your life, now who can you trust? Like, that's like some of these crazy cases, like getting, you know, whatever with your brother or sister, like bad shit, you know? Or if it's your commander, it's like getting taken advantage of by your parents, so you're completely, like, mind screwed in a way, you know?
Right, I can imagine.
It was really disturbing. It was really sad to see that people are going through this. And there was even cases where this one girl got her jaw broken as a result of being attacked, and she's you know, trying to get in touch with the VA hospital to say, look, I have the x-rays, this is what happened. And they're like, no, we have no evidence of that. You have no money to fix that.
Shit.
You weren't on duty enough time to be eligible for that medical thing. But she's like, I wasn't on duty because I was violently assaulted. So it was really eye-opening to see that this is going on. And I think that there's a lot of people who are good, you know, that are in the military that just don't think about it because they would never do it. And this film was shown to one of those higher-ups, and the next day I think he changed that unit commanders could no longer be in charge of investigations because only 1 in every, 10 cases the perpetrators were getting jail time. So the end result is that the predators exist, and they're probably still doing this shit.
Yeah.
Well, sorry to bum you out there.
No, I mean, it's part of life, unfortunately, you know.
Yeah.
For every, I mean, for all intents and purposes, for every good that's out there, this, you know, bad is just around the corner. So.
Speaking of which.
Speaking of which,
all right, let's get into the most ridiculous or the most, I saw 2 documentaries that are kind of like companion pieces in a way, but this is the number one thing I've seen all week or all 2 weeks or however long since we last spoke. There's a movie called Whore's Glory.
Okay.
and it is about prostitution around the world. A third of it is in Bangkok, a third of it is in Bangladesh, and a third of it is in Mexico. And
for a second there, I thought you were gonna mention like another country that had "bang" in the prefix.
Bang.
Yeah, that's all.
No, I ran out. Oh yeah, so it was taking it was a guy from Austria. He made the film, and it was a very non-judgmental look at the situation, where they kind of show you the outskirts of it and then bring you closer and closer and closer into the heart of it. And there was no narrator. It was strictly a fly-on-the-wall piece looking at how prostitution works in these different, some poor and some not so poor places around the earth. And I think the argument that the filmmaker was making is that you can't judge it because it's like war. It just is. It exists, and it exists forever. So let's just take a look at it now. This movie was so ridiculous, I don't know where to start. This movie starts in Bangkok, right? And the way that prostitution works there is that you have a group of 20 women sitting in a glass box. Now, the Johns on the other side are at a bar, drinking and chilling and deciding who they want to pick. Right. They fucking walk up to a microphone, karaoke style, and call out the number of the girl because each girl is tagged with a number.
Right.
The girl comes out, and they pay at the counter in advance for what they want with a credit card. Like, it's a formal business transaction, and then they go off into the room and do their own little thing. Now, for the girls, they're just trying to keep up appearances, so a lot of the money they make goes into beautification. How this was particularly goofy or unique is that they go to a Buddhist temple and pray for the most customers for that day. Now, this is still in the beginning of the film. There is a ridiculous scene that is one of the most pungent and most profound scenes I've ever seen that said nothing but did so much to sum up the filmmaker's point of view on the situation.
Okay. So
you know how in a documentary the filmmaker will set up a camera for 5 seconds to show people walking in and out of a club or whatever the source material of the documentary is? An opening shot.
Right, like an establishing shot.
An establishing shot. The filmmaker set up the camera knowing that people would be walking in and out of this club. So they start rolling the camera, but for a minute no one walks in or out. So it is what it is, you know, you're going to keep the camera rolling until you get that shot of someone walking in or out of this club. Now this is out in the street at night. There is a potted plant, there is a tree, and there is a door to the club. And, you know, it's a decently framed shot of nothing, basically, at this point. All of a sudden, 2 dogs start barking viciously at each other. You gotta see this. 2 dogs start barking viciously at each other. And a potted plant knocks over. So you know when something happens, dogs kind of get tense for a second?
Yeah.
They get tense, and they continue barking at each other, and now a third dog comes into the situation. Okay. In the middle of the fight, the third dog starts casually humping one of the fighters. So now you have 2 dogs growling at each other's face and another dog humping away, like completely disconcerted with the fight that's going on.
Right. So basically, it sounds like it's summarizing the nature of prostitution in Bangkok.
Yes, completely impersonable, completely detached sort of thing. Now, a 4th dog comes and starts humping the face of the dog who's already being humped.
Oh, jeez.
A 5th dog comes and just starts walking around casually. Right. So the whole and then all of a sudden someone opens the door from the sex club, like sex workers, the girls. They open the door and just walk out casually, not even paying any mind. Like it was New York City, and you're just walking past some random crazy act going on. They paid no mind to the violence, sexuality, or ridiculousness of a group of dogs fighting, while one of the dogs fighting is being humped on both ends.
You gotta be shitting me.
It was the most ridiculous, and the shot lasted over a minute. It was about a 90-second shot. And they kept it in the film, and it is the most ridiculous shot in the whole movie. And keep in mind, this movie is going pretty in-depth in terms of prostitution, in terms of stuff like that. So for this one random shot to be so telling and not even human, that was kind of ridiculous. Right. Okay, so they get into, this is the nicest place of the three places we go to, right?
Okay.
So very, very depersonal, very detached, very, it's like a detached view of sex. So now we go to India, where, no, excuse me, it wasn't India, it was Bangladesh.
Right.
We go to Bangladesh, where prostitution has a red light district, and how the red light district is kind of handed down from mother to daughter. And if you make enough money and you're smart enough, you become a maiden, and you control all the women. And you yell at them if they don't make enough money. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these girls didn't look like they were older than 12. It was pretty sick in that way, but the way the women treated the men was even more ridiculous. So, it's a very poor, impoverished place, dirt, brick on the floor sort of place. And the way the prostitution worked here was that guys would walk down a dark alley full of prostitutes, and each prostitute lived in a little hollowed out cave or room in this brick structure, this old structure. Now, the guy would walk straight down, and the women would basically grab him and assault him and drag him into the room. And if you got caught, you got caught, and that was the prostitute you were paying for the night.
Damn.
They would be like they'd grab him by the shirt, like a big burly girl would grab this, guy by the shirt and just drag him in. And, it just shows how, warped, different people's view on sex is, because they're talking to this one girl and she's like, no, I will never do oral, because oral is what I use to read the words of God, to read the words of Allah. So, of course not. I will never do that. So it's kind of weird, like a whole morality thing going on in the prostitutes world. But yeah, they drag the guys into the room, and then the guys pay them, and then the guy said on camera, he goes, look, this is the best thing that could happen to this area, because without this red light prostitution district, we'd be raping people like crazy. We'd be raping animals. It was crazy, dude. This movie was it was called Whore's Glory, and it was fucking ridiculous, to the fact that you had these old madams yelling at the girls, like, if you don't earn your keep, you're going to get thrown out on your ass. And then you had these girls in turn, knowing that they had to make money, grabbing dudes and just dragging them in. But then, it was so disturbing to see, like, a 13, 14-year-old girl say, oh yes, I had 10 clients today. One was an old man with a beard, one was a grandpa, one was a young man, one was violent and crazy with me, so he's not allowed back. But after that, I also had 10 other clients. And it shows
very casually speaking about her past endeavors, or usual workload, if you will.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
And they were kind of saying, like, the mother was like, look, this is my life, and I run the stable now, but I will have to find girls to run it. And when my daughter gets old enough, what is she gonna do? Because these places over there in that, like, whole Indian panhandle or whatever that is, they kind of still run on, like, an old class system. So if you came from a family of hookers, then you kind of are a hooker.
Oh, okay.
And she said, look, there's going to be no option for her in life. There's going to be no money for her in life. If she could get very lucky, maybe a guy will take her, but most likely she'll become a whore. And now she's saying this in front of, like, a child from birth. Like, you'll just be a whore. You'll become a whore. That'll be your, your title, your job function for life or whatever.
Right.
And then, so it was very sad. Every place they went to, at the end, the girl said, we're laughing, we're having a fun time as much as we can, but our life it's very sad. It's nonstop sadness. That's all there is here. So it was kind of,
sobering. Definitely sounds.
Yeah, it wasn't like they were crying in the streets, but they're like, we're gonna deal with it like any other person deals with sadness. We're gonna laugh. We're gonna do this, but this whole life is only sadness. And it will be that way forever. And then they went to Mexico, and you know how Mexico has like a goofy slant on culture sometimes.
Well, how so in Europe?
Okay, you know how Mexicans are like super Catholic, or can be?
Yeah, they're religious. That I'm aware.
They went to this place. It was kind of weird how like they kept juxtaposing, or at least showing, contradictions in people's like morality, and that all these places could be very religious, but at the same time, they were hookers and they were doing something that was looked down on by society, even though those same guys that would walk past them in the street, would also come at nighttime to come get laid or whatever. So they went down to Texas. Oh, excuse me. This is Mexico, but this is in a big city that borders Texas.
Gotcha.
And the way that prostitution worked here was, it was more of a North American thing, people driving by in cars, and it was kind of like little storage units, and each hooker had their own little storage unit with a bed inside, and they stood outside, and the guys would drive by in cars, and then they'd park their car in front of the place they want to do it. But it was completely, there was a lot of concern about time and money. Like, if you were paying only a certain amount, then you only got a certain amount of minutes. And the sex in this case was very joyless, sort of, it was very predetermined, like, this is what we're going to do, and this is how many minutes we're going to do it for, and it's because this is all you're paying, and stuff like that. But they showed these guys were coming down, and these guys were coming down because they wanted, like, some real dirty shit going on,
Clearly.
And they kind of showed how the people in this surrounding, there was a lot of drugs involved, and they were high on crack and stuff like that. And these women were also very sad, but because they were very Catholic, they were praying to a god of death. Like, they pray to Virgin Mary, they pray to Jesus, but they'd also pray to this like Mexican Catholic figure that was just death, basically. And they'd pray
like an archangel of sorts.
Yeah, it was just like a bony figure with wings or with like a religious hood on. It was just like bones. It was like death with a sickle. It had a sickle, and it was the god of death or whatever it was. And they were praying, and they would have this tattooed on themselves, and they would pray for a good death. They were like, when my death comes, make it be a good one, because there was a very big focus on that, And to the fact. Now, keep in mind, this whole movie, the only sex scene they ever showed was those dogs humping each other. So
really? You're
getting a lot just from word of mouth. So it wasn't like where it was just gritty and thrown in your face the whole time. But at the end, they did show a sex scene, and it had it was in Mexico, and the lady called the guy in. It was a younger man, and she says, this is what we're gonna do, and this is how long we're gonna do it for. And they showed the sex scene. And he pays her. The sex was completely like rushed, completely joyless, completely predetermined, and
so in a way, you felt like the customer got robbed.
I didn't feel like he got robbed, but I'm not like one who goes to prostitutes at all. So the fact that if you were to go to one, like. Why would you even go to it? No, like seeing this, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't seem to be like the guy got anything out of it. The girl, she got a little bit of money, but it's soul crushing experience.
What it seems to me, and also that, like, obviously they're trying to point out that how bad it is. In addition to it, they felt like, let's show like the worst sex scene possible, and in order to sort of kind of like deter any future customers from like trying to go into it. So what I'm assuming is that they probably did have some sex scene footages, at their disposal, but
Yeah.
they figured let's choose the worst sex scene possible to hammer our message home.
I would agree with you if the movie was not so non-judgmental. Like, I'm even putting the morality into the movie in my description of it.
So you felt like it was, I mean, the filmmakers took like an objectional point of view as opposed to a subjectional point of view?
Yeah, it was completely just fly on the wall. This is what happens. This is how it happens. We're going to show you an example in each case of how it happens. It just happened to be that the example shown in Mexico, I think they were let in, and she really showed them how she does it, and she probably got paid to do so. But they showed how formulaic, at least this one lady that they talked to was, and they showed how, you know, once 20 minutes or whatever the time limit hit, she promptly got that guy dressed and kicked him the fuck out and told him, come back when you have more money.
Now, just for laughs, I mean, I guess the real question is, did that son of a bitch have to, like, sign a release? You know, using the fact that he used...
I don't know.
Was his face, like, blurred out, or they showed it hard, you know, they showed him clear?
They showed everyone clear. And it seemed like the people had no shame. In fact, oh my god, there was a very funny scene in Mexico. There was a man who was probably a middle-aged man driving around in a truck. But he was, and it just kind of detailed how conflicted and how contradictory some of these views on sex and just some of the morality going on was. Right. This guy was driving down the street, and he was looking at all the girls, and he was like, these girls are hot. And then like he was driving on the bumpy road, and so he would say a passionate thing, and then he'd say an angry thing right after the other, and it was going on for like a minute. He's like, these girls are fucking hot, and then his car would bump, and he'd be like, fucking potholes, and he's like, whoa, I'm horny as hell, fucking whores, and it went on and on like this, and he's like, she's very good. The woman in Unit 23. Stupid bitch. Like, it was completely like a Ren and Stimpy cartoon. How this guy was so horny and so passionate and then completely angry and belligerent and from one line to the next.
Right. Almost like he had Tourette's or something like that when it came to the whores or the prostitutes that he did see.
Yeah. It was, I'm telling you, if you go on Netflix or watch one documentary of all the stuff we just talked about, that one, Whore's Glory, is the most ridiculous and most worth watching. And it's the most memorable, and I feel like certain things from that I'm never gonna unsee. Even though they didn't show a lot, but they just, the way the people were talking, you know, you got a vibe of life and how it was for them. And you know, sometimes you can't just, I guess, write someone off, because sometimes they're born into that lifestyle, so what do you really expect to happen? Like, for instance, right. in the scene in India, these were little girls getting condoms from their mother, and then, like, in between talking about all the men they slept with that day, the little girl on camera, who's completely uneducated, completely on-camera savvy, and a little girl, she starts picking her nose. And you're like, holy shit, that's a little kid. That's a little kid talking about, like, some pretty grown-up things.
Right.
So I saw that, and I also saw a companion piece, not a companion piece, but it was in the very same vein. It was called The Great Happiness Space, Tale of an Osaka Love Thief, and it was showing that in Japan, they have these places where it's almost like a male brothel, and they're called hosts. And these guys have to look like anime characters. They look very... this is goofy, but they're like pretty boys, right?
Yeah.
These guys like have the blonde, like, anime hair. They're pretty boys.
Right, not an ounce of fat on these guys. You know, they're all well sculpted and shit like that.
No, and their livers are completely shot to shit because their job is to party with girls and convince all their clients who are girls that they love them. Keep in mind, there's very little to no sex involved. So on the female end of paying for prostitution, in a way, females are paying for the love feeling, or at least in this place they are. Now the sick part about it is that these girls need to pay a lot of money to keep coming back to be admirers of these guys, because it's pay to play. but the guys make them feel special and loved. You follow me? So a lot of these girls turn to prostitution as it's the only way to make enough money to then feel better at the end of the day. But you could see how that's a very vicious cycle. So they go and prostitute all day so they could give all their money to a guy who pretends that he loves them for a few hours.
Now, just for laughs, now, was one of them, like, dressed up as Goku?
No. But it is a very interesting look into Japanese culture, because this is the sort of culture that I don't believe exists anywhere else in the world. This whole little subculture of hosts and male Japanese, like, boy toys. And the fact that there's not much sex going on, it's just paying for the feeling of love, even though the clients are liars, and that they say, oh, I love you, I just want to be with you, be with me. And the hosts, the guys are liars because they're telling them how great they are. And the whole game of it is to string the girls on for as long as they can without getting too deeply involved so that the girls will pay more money. It was goofy in a Japan way, like a very weird cultural thing, but it was also it was also very sad. It was also very sad.
Sounds unsettling. You know?
Yeah, that was also worth seeing. It wasn't as worth seeing as Horror's Glory. That was completely invasive, but it was very much like it in that they spent an hour in one place and showed how it worked, and the fact that these girls some of those girls got into prostitution specifically so they could keep up the habit of going to visit these guys that tell them how pretty they are, or like have a party with them or drink with them. And then they showed the guy's point of view, who they're like, yeah, we know it's fucked up, but we got to turn off our morals because we're making a ton of money, and we're probably going to need that money because at this point our livers are completely damaged from drinking like 12 bottles of wine a night or champagne a night.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like these guys were playboys and everyone was being damaged as a result, but it was like a non-stop party, and that's life and that's business, and these guys have to go up to girls in the street and like charm them into coming in the first place.
Right. Now, I mean, in terms of these guys as opposed to the prostitutes that you saw in the previous doc, I mean, I'm quite sure those prostitutes were taken against their will. Was there like any indication that, you know, these male prostitutes were taken against their will, or
nope,
it was just a choice?
This was specifically a job, a legal job.
Oh, okay.
They were paid to be party guys, and they knew that's what they were there for.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, you know, when you're making that much money, you don't want to get out of making that much money. A lot of them are like, when my morals are coming up, I feel really bad about everything that's happened and how everyone's life is getting destroyed. But then I think of how much money I make and how good I am at making that money.
Right. Now a good night for these guys was how much?
Shit, these guys could make like a month, like I think $50,000 a month if they have a good month.
Oh shit.
I could do that.
Yeah, but we definitely got to look like anime characters.
Yeah, I look more like Shrek than an anime character.
Well, alright, don't worry. Just paint yourself green. I'm sure there's some Japanese ladies out are turned on by Shrek.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how these girls were throwing their money away. Like, it seems obvious. Like, wow, that's a stupid thing. If you did it once, that might have been fun, but I couldn't believe it. But
you have these addicts. Yeah, you have these addicts, I'm sure.
And the guys had multiple girls in them with them at the same time, and then the girls would have to pay for a couple minutes alone with the guy. It was completely sick. It was completely sick, and it was completely fascinating at the same time.
Right.
And I guess that's what I was into this week. So so yeah, that was called The Great Happiness Space, the Japanese one. The main one was called Horror's Glory. American Winter was the one about the poor people who got their lights turned off in America, in Portland. The Invisible War is the one about the military and the girls who getting
sexually assaulted.
Yeah. Yeah, Happy People was the one about the people who live in Siberia.
Right.
Sharknado was the one about sharks that come out of a tornado.
Right, which I think I'm going to steer clear of. But if I do see it on TV, you know, you'll be the first to know. So.
knuckleballers, that was obviously what it was. And
Yeah.
and I guess that was it. We talked about the Heat. We talked about End of Watch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did we finish the conversation as to whether you think that these guys, Rogan and Apatow and all those guys, will fade off, or
Hello?
Oh, hello?
Hello.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Chief.
Oh, I think, did we finish the conversation with Apatow and Rogan, and if they're going still strong, or if they'll fade off, or what?
Well, I mean, the nature of comedy is ever changing. I think, yeah, we did speak briefly about it, and I said, like, there's so many avenues out there in the media for them to still stay afloat.
Yeah, Rogan could even write for video games.
Yeah, that's the last medium I was thinking about. But yeah, I was thinking, with Amazon and Netflix, are green lighting shows that would never see the light of day on television. Yeah, they could still, they still have avenues where they can still showcase their talents.
Yeah, but I wonder how their whole little style of, I don't think people realize, I think they get paid for all those product placement jokes that they do.
I'm sure they do.
And I don't think there's some writers that I see in Hollywood out here that like try to copy, Seth Rogen's style, but they also like do a lot of jokes about products and shouting out different things, which is cool if you're reviewing something, but if you're putting it in your own dramatic piece, like, I don't think that those young writers that are coming up, like, admiring Seth Rogen realize that he's getting fucking paid for all that.
Right. Yes, there's some truth to that. I'd believe.
Hey, I mean, if that's the money he gets to make his movie, I just don't know how that would transfer into other mediums, or I guess it would transfer. Money's money.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it would. I'm sure it would. As long as the project gets greenlit, it shouldn't be a problem at all.
All right, so I guess that covers. Did you see anything else? Because I feel like I'm just blabbing like crazy this week.
No, you actually did more homework than I did, because I don't like doing homework.
I did. Is that unnatural that I did so much? I was just in a mood. I just watched a bunch of documentaries, really.
No, it's all right. I mean, the only films I've been watching have been old films. Like just recently, I watched this old film called The Phantom, which was, it came out in the 90s, 96, and was about that pulp fiction superhero. So, I mean, we don't really want to talk about that.
I don't know anything about it. Is it worth watching, or?
Well, it's basically, I mean, it came out in the absence of when there was no Indiana Jones pictures being made.
Okay.
And Hollywood was basically looking for another pulp fiction franchise to make a movie out of and see if they could like strike box office gold with that. And also films like The Shadow, they came out roughly around the same time, but they didn't really do much. So they kind of garnered a cult following, if you will. The Phantom's just basically, Batman meets Tarzan in the sense that, he swings around vines and he wears a costume. In his case, he wears a purple costume. And, I don't know how he's supposed to strike fear in criminals on both ends of the hemisphere, but yeah, apparently it works for him.
Yeah, something about leotards that I guess is not very threatening.
Right. No, not in this day and age. That's why, in a way, the recent Batman films, they kind of work.
Yeah.
Because his costume was more like body armor. And,
hey, how did, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
No, it's just ridiculous with seeing Billy Zane, wear like a leotard outfit, hugging into his body and shit like that.
How did that all start? How did super comic books and stuff like that start wearing leotards? Like, what was the?
Well, I mean,
because in the beginning, like the Caped Crusader, like it was just probably someone that had a cape on, or like they probably had baggy regular clothes at first, right?
I mean, the superheroes started with the pulp fiction characters like, the Shadow, and even going even further back like Zorro and or the Scarecrow, Romney Marsh, and Robin Hood. Those guys, they didn't really wear much armor, so they wore like, roughly like, form-fitting clothes that, fit them nicely and all that kind of stuff. And then in terms of transitioning from Pulp Fiction heroes to the comic books, yeah, the illustrators who just drew a simple body, they didn't really draw that much details into it. So when these comic books respectively started blowing up and they were like selling out, Hollywood came calling. And I think that's when like, the leotard outfit started like coming into play, Columbia.
So you're saying Hollywood pushed comic books to go leotard?
I wouldn't say they pushed it, but they were influenced by it. There you go.
What were you saying about Columbia Pictures?
Well, Columbia Pictures was at the time Property Row, and they produced the first Batman serials, if I'm not mistaken. Where the actor, I forgot the guy's name, he was wearing some form of leotard outfit, along with the cape and cowl and all that kind of stuff. And this was when like serials were huge.
I just saw some Superman serials, Superman vs. Atom Man.
Yes, and that was the introduction of Lex Luthor to the big screen, or small. Right, it was the big screen. And what cracks me up about those, the guy that played Superman, Kirk Allen, was a bit of a hamsteak, and it didn't help, like, with the fact that the special effects, they use animation from The Fly.
That was interesting. Yeah, they would actually animate, like, they would shoot it on film, but as he was jumping into the air, you could see him turn from a human into a cartoon, and flying around through the air, he was a cartoon.
Right.
Like, they'd have the actor jump, and then they'd fade from him jumping up into the air into the cartoon jumping and flying.
Right. Which I thought that was, it looked kind of ridiculous. It got better when they shot the next film, which was Superman and the Mole Man, which I think is actually one of the better Superman films ever made.
Well, because they had a regular season of the serials in like 1948, and then in 1950 they did Superman vs. Atom Man.
Yeah.
When was the Mole Man?
The Mole Man was around the 50s. I think that was like 51 actually. And I think Atom Man vs. Superman, I want to say, was like late 40s, like 48, 49. Mm-hmm. That's when they replaced Kirk Allen with George Reeves, who was already, I wouldn't say he was an established star, but he was already working in the business for quite some time. And, they hired him to play, the character. And that's when technology kind of caught up, but not by much, where they just had him like on a wire, and they just had the screen like, rotating and shit like that to make it seem like he was going fast and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was like the earlier transition of like, or the first sightings of like superheroes in leotard outfits.
Did anyone play Superman between George and Christopher Reeves?
No, actually.
Now, Christopher Reeves is not his son, right?
No, there's no relation to George Reeves and Christopher Reeves.
Well, that must have been weird.
Yeah, I did find it weird growing up, that they had like roughly the similar last names. I think George Reeves has the S, and Christopher Reeves just has no S at the end of his last name, which I find interesting.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and
hey, remember The Wire? We were talking about this last time in Adventures of Superboy. Remember The Wire?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, definitely see how bad. I mean, the flying sequences look. But if you thought those sequences looked bad, I mean, there was this one show back in the 70s called The Adventures of Captain Marvel. And now Captain Marvel, he's he's a boy that turns into a man. It's the big red cheese, and some of those flying sequences were really bad. But they make, the Adventures of Superman look top notch in terms of the effects. So,
wow,
a little food for thought.
So what? So you're gonna see Lone Ranger or what?
I mean, I grew up with the Lone Ranger, but I don't really have an urge to see it. I'll tell you one thing though, it can't be any worse than the Green Hornet, the Seth Rogen version.
Oh shoot, I never saw that.
I mean, you could see it, but I think it'd be a waste of your time.
Okay.
I mean, there's a sequence that's ridiculous where you have not the Lone Ranger, but the Green Hornet and Kato fighting, and that goes for like about 5 minutes, and that should not be. Kato should mop the floor with the Green Hornet, no matter what, in my opinion. So
okay.
I'm sure, like it's all right. The Lone Ranger, but I heard from what I've been reading from various critics is that story is it's all over the place, and that Johnny Depp is basically doing his version of Jack Sparrow, playing Tonto, and that the guy that's playing the Lone Ranger, Armie Hammer, is like probably the wimpiest hero that you've seen in cinema history, which is saying something.
What else was Armie Hammer in?
He was also in The Social Network. He played the Winklevosses. He plays dual roles. He plays the twins. What else has he been? I mean, he's done various things. Like I think he was on Gossip. Yeah, like a guest star stint on Gossip Girl. And
you watch Gossip Girl, right?
Well, to let the secret out, yeah, sue me.
Wait, are you being serious? You watch Gossip Girl?
No, I'm not being serious.
I've seen some of them.
No, well, I'm not going to hold it against you.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Instead of me doing so much homework next week, I'll go see some stuff that's in the. I'll go see some stuff that's in the theaters. You go see. Whatever. We'll meet up and talk about it. And then maybe we'll do like a discussion, like favorite old movies or some sort of specific topic. Like maybe we could get into stuff like that.
I have no problem with that. I'll see. I mean, I think I told you I'm going to see, Pacific Rim, when that comes out. So
when does that come out?
That's supposed to be the 17th.
Okay, this week. Here's what's out so far, and then I'll tell you what's opening. What's it?
The Heat, obviously.
Yeah, The Heat, Monsters University, which got good reviews. I don't know if I ever want to see a sequel of something I didn't see the first one of. But what is that, Pixar, right? That's probably decent.
Correct.
World War Z, which we both saw and talked about. The Heat, which I saw, we talked about. White House Down, which I might still go see that on a whim.
Really?
Yeah, I might go see it. This Is the End and Man of Steel, which we both saw, both talked about. Now You See Me.
I heard decent things about that.
Yeah, kind of got a mix, like a half and half review. I'm kind of interested though.
Right.
Fast and Furious 6, which we talked about. It's not worth even talking that much about.
Right, because you kind of know what you're going to get. I know.
Yeah, that scene was cool. Star Trek, which, well, that's way too past. It was what it was. And The Internship, which I'm not going to see and don't care to even speak about.
Really? How come? Just for laughs.
Okay, that might be it. Well, because did you see The Onion ripping on it?
No, I didn't see The Onion ripping on it.
The Onion made a video saying that The Internship is going to be the best movie of 2005.
Oh, okay.
Because, come on, how out of touch and out of date is this movie? At least for people our age, maybe it might apply for, no offense to anyone who is older, but maybe it might apply to someone who's older, but I think the generation gap is a little lost here in this movie.
Yes.
It's not for everyone. I think it's for older people, but even some older people know how to use these certain technologies already, like that they're claiming in the movie that these guys don't know how to use, but maybe that still applies to older people, because they remember going through having to play the catch-up game, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Or why, what do you think about that?
No, I just think, I would think I'm a little harsher in thinking that their relevancy together, and I'm talking about Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson, kind of ran out.
Yeah, it's kind of like an ego trip, like they're saying, nah, you'll go see this.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
and it's kind of a weird advertisement for Google. Does Google need fucking advertisement? I mean, I think everyone uses it.
you're right, exactly. They're $1 billion corporation. What the fuck? Why the hell would they need a film to showcase, the usage in their place in society?
Bing, Bing.
Just,
Give that
right.
advertisement to Bing.
Yeah, I think a Bing would make more sense than Google, right?
But
If you're gonna make a film about Google, how about like how it came to be? And I think people still like origin stories in that regard.
Yeah, and that's why. What was the one with Bill Gates, Masters of Silicon Valley or whatever that was called?
Yes.
And then you had the Social Network. Like, yeah, some of these places you use all these things and you never know where they came from, and no one's digging to find out. These are just websites. It's not like these websites even have a face on them. Like the last website that had a real face was Tom from MySpace.
Right, exactly. Who knows where the hell that guy is?
I don't think that guy was real. He was.
He wasn't.
No, he was CGI, I think.
Oh.
I don't know. I know Google didn't fund the movie. I heard that they just let them shoot in there, but some of the stuff was just, a lot of the comedy was lost on me. Even just seeing the trailer, I had no intention of seeing this movie at all.
Right. Likewise.
Okay. What's it?
No, I only laughed at one line where, they're saying how you shouldn't drink with your bosses. And he's like, and then Vince Vaughn says something along the lines, we should grab a cold one together. And the guy's Indian. The boss is Indian. He's like, no, I will not be grabbing a cold one with you. Which I always thought that was funny. I don't know why. Maybe because of the delivery. But that was about the only thing that actually made me laugh.
Yeah, I was kind of feeling weird I couldn't believe that. When I saw that trailer, I could not believe it. I was like, is this for real? Is this serious? This seems like so out of place. This seems like so yesteryear. Something seems weird about this movie to me.
Right, it's like, to me it was like, Vince Vaughn, wasn't you waited that long for, with the Wedding Crasher to do this? Great.
This feels like Superman Returns.
In a sense, right, that they're out of date, yes. In a way, yes.
Alright, so of the things that are currently out, Now You See Me and White House Down, I'll maybe go see those, but let's talk about things that are opening. The Lone Ranger, which got terrible reviews.
Which I'm not surprised at.
The Way Back, which got good reviews. I think it has Steve Carell.
Yes, and that's with, I think, Sam Rockwell or something like that.
Speaking of things that have... Oh, I'm sorry, what's it?
I think it also has Sam Rockwell in it. I could be wrong, but...
Yeah, I'm going to look into it. I don't know what it's about, but I don't have any clue what it's about yet. But also, speaking of Steve Carell, Despicable Me 2.
You going to go see it?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, I mean, right. I mean, from the general consensus of that coming from the critics is that, they didn't really need a sequel to that. And what it's like missing is the charm from the first one. That's what I heard.
I wasn't charmed by the first one. I saw the first one as a clear Toy Story ripoff. I understand every generation you need a new audience to sell to, but this was just so in your face. And the fact that I don't know, I just felt like it was completely heartless, soulless, and I wasn't charmed by it. I was miserable the whole time in the movie. I took like a little kid. So...
You sure you didn't have like a root canal done at
I had no root canal. I felt like the whole entire project was see-through. This was strictly a money-making venture because they know that if you have 1 million cute characters like Smurfs or whatever, that kids will get into it. And kids will get behind it because it's silly and there's goofy things, but I felt like even the moments that were supposed to be heartfelt, it weren't even catching me. And maybe it was because Steve Carell had such a fake Russian accent that did it. I couldn't connect with the movie on any level. And I was with the little kid in the movie theater, and he was there, and he was enjoying it because it was a kid's thing, but I don't know if he really liked it. Like, how sometimes kids are just going for the ride, and they're like, yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and maybe I'm being too harsh on it. I know a lot of people like those little silly things, but I saw the whole time, I just looked at those things saying, these were specifically made to sell merchandise, and that was about it. This was like a step above a network show where everyone's there because they're just being paid, and and don't care the fuck at all.
Right. Now this is DreamWorks, correct?
Of course, yeah, it probably is.
Then yeah, I'm not. I mean, I was all DreamWorks out after the first Shrek. So
here's the thing. You know what? And to its credit, it definitely didn't have. I don't know if it's exactly DreamWorks. And to its credit, it does try to be like a heartwarming movie. So the fact that I wasn't heartwarmed by it, okay, that's just my thing. But DreamWorks, real quick, what they do that I'm really kind of displeased with is that they don't let the comedy be a result of the storytelling. Like, for instance, Disney and Pixar both do that. If you watch Tangled's brilliant. From start to finish, the comedy in that movie comes from characters who are doing things a certain way, like that horse, that ridiculous horse from Tangled. Did you see that militant horse is specifically doing visual funny things that you're laughing at because it's part of the story. Where DreamWorks will have a random joke about, like, fucking Lindsay Lohan getting arrested. First of all, that's a low blow. Second of all, it doesn't apply to kids, so you're throwing a bone in terms of an adult joke to the parents who are forced to be there, but what that's really doing at the end of the day is having the parents realize, like, oh, thank God they threw me that joke, because, yeah, there is a clear disconnect between kid and adult in this movie theater. Whereas it doesn't have to be that way. Tangled was not that way. WALL-E and Up are not that way. It's for kids and it's for adults, and it's well done.
Right.
But DreamWorks, obviously, you know, they don't push the limit with their computer-generated stuff, unlike Pixar or other stuff, which is not a big deal. If you could tell a good story, you could tell a good story. But I feel more often than, like, Rango was good. Rango, the jokes lent to the story. It was all about the story, and it was a good movie as a result. But with DreamWorks, a lot of times they throw out random jokes that go over the kid's head that are just supposed to tickle the parents, but at the same point they're being tickled because there's not a lot of substance there.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. You know, it's just, you know, obviously they're trying to cater to the kids, but they're also trying to cater to the adults that have to take the kids to see these films.
Yeah.
So they just throw whatever relevant reference that they could think of, you know, just to wink to them, you know, saying that, listen, we understand your pain.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way. It does not. There does not need to be. And if you want to go really, like, deep into it, like, do you really need to be like, the kids and the parents went to the movie together? Why are you creating a separation between child and parent in terms of the entertainment they're viewing? Like, this is for you and this is for you. Now you've taken a group of people who went together as a group and you're dividing them based on their likes and interests. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You know, and it's not, and then, you know, you're forcing the parent then to basically try to pretend to the kids saying how they had fun watching that film. You know, how they enjoyed the same thing that the child enjoyed, which was not the case. They just enjoyed whatever relevant reference that the film was able to throw at them in such a short period of time. You know.
So you got parents and kids lying to each other, and then when the parents go home, the parents and kids go home, the kids say to the other kids, oh yeah, that was good, because whatever. And then the parents just go like this to the other parent, it was cute.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, the kids liked it. And the kids are saying, well, it's better than being stuck at home.
Right,
so
exactly.
I see this a lot too. Growing up, I was like, and you know, a mutual friend of ours also, or two, was also like wrestling fans, and that happens with wrestling too. Like, that wrestling hasn't been very watchable for the last 10 years because you got kids going because their parents are taking them, and the parents believe the kids want to go, but the kids believe that the parents like it. But does anyone like the current product? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know, but it's kind of just this weird thing where you're playing off the fact that kids are bratty and want their parents to take them places, and that parents want to do for their kids, so want to take them places. So it's like, we all need to get on the same page here and start having some good quality stuff come out.
Right. I agree.
Okay, let's go real quick through what else is coming out. Kevin Hart, let me explain. It seems like it got decent reviews so far. I guess it's just a stand-up comedy movie.
Yeah, it's just him doing stand-up for the most part.
That's weird.
One of my favorites.
How did he get this to be greenlit into a film instead of just like an HBO deal?
Well, he's one of the few likable black comedians out there, to be honest with you. And he's in. He has a brief cameo in This Is the End.
Yeah, that was good.
He's also has a show out on BET called The Real Husbands of, I think Malibu or whatever the hell it is. But, he has shows that are out now, and, he's like a darling in Hollywood right now.
Yeah, I know he's funny. There is a lot of copy and paste with the black comedy stuff, but he is funny. Copy and paste?
How so?
There's that stereotypical black comedian sort of mold that is very easy to slip into because it's very easy to get a laugh off that sort of stuff, but it's also very easy to get stuck into because you don't have to reach with any new, that shit's been going on for so long that...
Well, I mean, right. I mean, I guess, ever since what's his name passed away, I guess they were looking, Bernie Mac, they were looking for all right, let's look for a black comedian who is funny, but he's not threatening, at least that's what I got. Again, I guess the safest bet for Hollywood was Kevin Hart in that regard.
Who was that skinny black comic that did that routine where he was dancing in a club but also doing baseball and football moves and stuff like that?
That would be Cat Williams.
That was fucking funny.
Who was, I don't know what the hell he's doing. I think he's in rehab or some shit like that.
I'm gonna try that. I'm still gonna try that move, dancing, one day. That's a good move.
If that's the case, then I have to be there, for the purpose of getting a laugh,
So Kevin Hart, by being a Hollywood darling, got a stand-up set to major film screens.
Yes, and like I said, he also has a show out on BET, and he's doing a lot. He's doing a whole bunch of stuff. So
yeah, I think those are the big ones.
Right. To me, he's filling out the void of the accessible comedian, the accessible black comedian. If that makes sense.
Hopefully, he doesn't go too darling and turn into Eddie Murphy.
Wait. Well, is that right? Well, you have to understand. I don't think he's going to reach that plateau that Eddie is Eddie's an A-lister, regardless of whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And so.
But shit,
But to me.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Kevin Hart has had a string of hits, in the form of Think Like a Man and, and other stuff that he's been in. But I don't think he's going to reach that plateau that Eddie has reached in terms of being like a superstar comedian.
Yeah, he was really on fire. Okay, so those are the big ones opening up. Other than that, there's a movie with Greg Kinnear called Stuck in Love. Something. Let's see what else. The Look of Love.
Greg Kinnear still making films?
I thought you were going to say, is he still alive? Yeah, I guess he's still making films.
Oh, okay.
There's something called The Look of Love. What's that? Yeah, I guess it's nothing we'll see, though.
It sounds like, is that crap with Adam Brody or something like that?
This has Steve Coogan.
I don't know who the fuck that is. I'm sorry.
Oh, shit. In terms of opening...
No, I take that back. I do know who Steve Coogan is. I'm just being a dick.
Alright, so then in terms of things opening up, there is a small possibility I'll see the Kevin Hart thing, but I'll probably go see that movie The Way, Way Back. And I might even go back and see White House Down, or Now You See Me.
Oh, I'm sure you'll get a couple laughs at White House Down. That's what that is.
Maybe I'll even go out to the indie theater and watch. There's a lot of good indie movies that have been out that if I don't see it, they'll probably be gone from the screen soon.
Which reminds me, I better check out the Angelica Theater, see what the hell's out in that little Cineplex.
Yeah, sometimes those little indie movies, sometimes they're a little bit too much, but if you get, when it's good? When you get a director that wants to do something so bad that they're willing to work outside of Hollywood to get it distributed, and you get a little good film out of it,
Gotcha.
Did you ever see Moonrise Kingdom? which was the guy who made Life Aquatic and all that stuff.
I actually did see that.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I actually did enjoy it for what it was, in terms of, I just thought it was funny, like, the reason being that the kids, ran away from home and all that kind of nonsense, and then on top of that, you're dealing with the Boy Scouts trying to track their asses down, and and then Bruce Willis, and I think in arguably one of his more interesting roles, is trying to find out where they are and all that kind of stuff,
And wasn't not Johnny Depp? It was Brad Pitt was in that. Was that him as the camp counselor? Who was the camp counselor in that?
No, that was Edward Norton.
That was Edward Norton. That was a great role too. He was the oldest Boy Scout, and he was handling the investigation from a Boy Scouts training manual.
Yeah, I know. It was ridiculous as it was fun. I think also Harvey Keitel has a little brief cameo in there, where he's like the head Boy Scout,
Yeah.
Who else? Oh, yeah. How can we forget about Bill Murray? Bill Murray being like, playing the sort of like,
father who did not give a shit at all.
He's the out of touch father and doesn't give a rat's ass at all.
Bill Murray was in about 1% of that movie, but it was hysterical.
Yeah.
Moonrise Kingdom. I was surprised it only had limited distribution. I thought that was the best movie of all year last year.
Really?
I'm trying to remember exactly when it came out or what else was out, but that was the best time I had in a movie theater.
Really?
Maybe it didn't get, it might not have got wide distribution because there was some weird, questionable shit going on, like between the kids. They were young and they were like kissing, and maybe that was the reason, or maybe not. Maybe it was just that it wasn't a big movie.
That's a possibility, pal.
Anyway, I guess that sums everything up.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about it in our next show.
Okay, so are you going to see anything?
Like I said, I'm going to go see Pacific Rim.
Wait, that doesn't come out for like a month, though.
Who gives a shit? But I'm going to see that, and I guess I might check out Fast 6 and Star Trek.
Really? Wow, you're going through the backlog. All right, I'll talk to you about Fast 6 and Star Trek. I can't even remember those movies at this point.
Don't worry, I'll if I do have time, I'll bring you up to speed then.
All right, cool. All right, so again, I'm Chris, and you are
Brian. Last time I checked,
and we have been shooting the ish for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
All right, cool. This will be up online pretty soon.
All right then. Good enough.
See ya.
Later.